What's going on, everybody? Jorge Aquino coming to you live and direct. It's Tormenting Tarmac podcast where the enthusiast never dies. You find me recording finally back at home after the last craziness of a weekend where you'll probably be hearing this a few weeks after that respective weekend. But if you're just if you're wondering what's been going on, I was over at the Velocity Invitational and we just got done releasing a 3-part special with 3 episodes releasing in 1 week, which if people only understood how scared that makes me, because it's one thing to go ahead and release 1 episode, but then to go ahead and release 2 to 3 in 1 week, I wonder if you guys even want to listen. But that being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed it and whatnot. You find us in the middle of October, October the 10th to be specific. The Major League Baseball postseason is going on. The WNBA finals are going on. If anybody watches the WNBA finals, I pay attention every once in a while. And the NFL is in full swing. The NHL is starting. The NBA is going to start. But we're talking cars, baby. We're talking cars. We're talking car culture. I have a fantastic guest lined up for me this evening, Joshua Rezende, Black Tire Media. What's up, my dude? Welcome to TT, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Dude, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You have been someone I've been eyeing for a while now. I think that your talent speaks for itself. Clearly, I always talk about there's a lot of people out there who are an up and coming photographer, and there's so much talent here in the
So
state,
much.
in the city, right?
Yeah.
But you're one of those that is you've got the skin in the game now, bro. Like you are full on freelance. You work with brands, they work with you. Yeah, I see you in Texas all the time working with a lot of BMW dealerships and things of that nature. Like that's amazing, man. That's hard work coming to fruition, right?
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a lot of, it is a lot of hard work, but I think it's a lot of luck. And I think people forget that is it's the right place, it's the right time, and it's being lucky or prepared for something to come up your way. But yeah, I mean, it is 100% freelance. I don't have a 9 to 5. I don't have a W-2. I pay, unfortunately, 1099 taxes. I am reliant on myself. Like you said,
Yeah.
it is completely on my own.
What like when you first said to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and get into the social media space, into, photography as a job," because a lot of our colleagues and comrades, they do it as some of them do it as a job, others go ahead and do it as a hobby, others go ahead and mix it in. You yourself, you've made this your career. You are, would you consider yourself social media manager, if you will, or is it more so like a freelance photographer for companies and brands?
It's definitely photographer now. I do
Yeah.
run social media for some like local BMW dealer groups. Essentially, they're called
Yeah.
Mako dealers.
Mhm.
So I help run them. But no, that's not really where the money comes from. The money does come from just straight up photography, which is the dream, right? And
Right.
it's been just years and years and years and years of trying to figure out how to do it, and 2 or 3 big clients can let you do it.
Yeah. Like that you've done well when one big particular client is that thing that basically just allows you to say, okay, I'm set right here moving forward. Like I may be freelance, but I basically am their main photographer and whatnot. How
Yeah.
old are you, if you don't mind me asking you, Josh?
I'm old now, dude. I actually I've been doing this for a while. So I was young once upon a time doing this. I'm 31 now.
Oh, okay, dude.
So
Okay, you're one of the older peeps that I've had on the
I
of the group. Okay,
I
cool.
am. Yeah, I started late doing this. So like when I first started doing this, there was already people, 4 years younger than me with a way higher skill level than I
Hmm.
ever could have dreamed of. It's because I decided that I wanted to do like the normal corporate guy stuff, work the
Hmm.
9 to 5, have the retirement benefits, do all of that stuff. And I think after, doing it for such a long time, I realized I hated sitting at a desk. I hated it more than anything. I had a big glass office in Scottsdale that overlooked like one of these like ponds. I'm like, I don't want to be in this office. I feel like I'm in a cage. So
Sure.
I started late, right? So I unfortunately got to start around 25 years old when I actually picked up a camera again and started shooting cars. And so yeah, now I'm the old man, dude. Now people look at me and they ask me for like financial advice, which they shouldn't, or like life advice, which probably shouldn't again.
I hear you, bro. I hear you. I get asked advice every once in a while, and it makes me feel like an old fart and whatnot. And to be quite honest with you, and honest with the entire audience, and I think most of the people can go ahead and attest to this, I actually look up to a lot of the people that are in the space, and they happen to be like 10 years younger than I am. And it's
Yeah.
actually kind of hilarious. But there's so many of I think so many people in the space here that all you can do is look up to them, and all you can do is be in awe of what they're doing. You're one of those people, dude. I see you all the time, and I'm just like, damn, dude, Joshua's got to figure it out. Like, let's go. And there's others that are getting there and whatnot. And
Yeah.
you talked about how you picked up a camera again. So I take it if you go back to when Joshua was a little kid and whatnot, was that always a hobby? Was it that a lot of times you talk to the car photographers out there, and it was like they like cars first and photography second, or the other way around. What was it for you?
So I would say, I mean, it was cars first. I mean, I was a little kid. So like,
Yeah.
growing up, being in the garage all the time, messing with stuff, breaking stuff, riding dirt bikes, that kind of stuff helped me become a car person. But I started photography as a really, really young kid as well. So
Mhm.
I started at, I think I was 12 or 13 when I had my
Okay.
first little point and shoot camera. And then things kind of come together, right? The history of me getting into photography is odd. I did it in high school and junior high, and I started submitting stuff to competitions. So judges would rate it blindly and give you whatever score out of whatever score they believe in. And I actually was scoring pretty well, and I actually shot film for 8 years.
Oh,
During this period
nice.
of time, I was a purist. I didn't believe that digital was ever going to do anything. I didn't believe digital deserved a space in the art realm. And now that's all I am, is more digital than anything. So it's funny how things turn around.
For sure.
But yeah, I started at a young age and just shot as much as I could. I've done everything. I mean, I've done weddings, I've done portraits, I've done like events for people's like kids. I've done everything you can think of to make me realize that the only thing I really do like shooting is cars.
Really.
That's
So
the only thing.
that's so interesting. But clearly, your passion for cars is big enough that it doesn't take away from, because a lot of times what can happen is either photography, you do it so much, it takes away your love for it. And you wonder are you just shooting for the love of the photography? Or are you just shooting because you're just shooting? And then at the same time, when it comes to cars, like, am I enamored with cars, or am I just doing this because it's the thing that I've been doing for the last few years? I'm glad to know
Yeah.
that for you're not losing that love for either. I do find it
Nope.
fascinating though for you to go ahead and say that you went from film to digital and that's all you do. It clearly makes sense that you would go ahead and do digital in your work, obviously, because when it comes to film photography, that is more considered art. Um, and you can incorporate it into work, but that's a lot of
Mhm.
times I want to be careful with how I say this, in a more creative setting. Whereas even though you're extremely creative, your photography doesn't necessarily always lend itself to that,
Nope.
unless you're doing private shoots for clients and whatnot. And would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing is like, in any art form, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's music, if it's, like, for example, podcasting, it doesn't matter what it is. There's always gonna be that purist, right? There's always gonna be
Mhm.
those people who are gonna be like, nope, I'm doing it better than you. I am doing it purer than you. But
Right.
that's a funny argument, because if you enjoy it and you're creating something, you're winning. That's it, right? Is just have a good time and create it, and stop comparing it, or making a competition. We're all doing this for fun.
100%. No, I agree with you. I'm so glad that you went ahead and said that, because there are times that kind of like it comes into my brain. It really does. You know what I mean? Like, this is season 3. We're wrapping it up here in the next like couple of months. I can't believe we're already in October. I mean, the end of the year is coming right around the corner and whatnot. But like, I do have to go ahead and tell myself every once in a while, it's like, dude, you're doing this for the love of for the love of sport. You know what I mean? For the love of the game and whatnot. Don't get too enamored with the growth. Appreciate the growth as it comes and whatnot.
Yep.
This podcast is growing. I'm not going to lie to you in any way, shape, or form. But remember, I was talking to my buddy Ollie Hoff, right? Otto
Yeah,
Hoffs.
I know him.
Everybody knows Ollie, right?
Yeah.
His name is Ollie. He loves to party. That guy, I love
Yeah.
that guy. And when he was on the podcast a few weeks back, he basically kind of like put it to remember what brought you to the dance to begin with. And that's been something that over the last couple of weeks, and over the last few weeks, I should say, I've had to kind of like tell myself, it's like, well, remember what brought me to the dance. Remember why I started this to begin with. It's for the love of car culture. It's for the love of the cars. It's for the love of the storytelling. It's for the love of the people that you bring on this podcast and you get a chance to have them share what made them the car enthusiasts that they are today. And
Yeah.
so I'm really, as this podcast grows, I have to kind of like, you have to kind of revert back to it. And I'm assuming that in your case, the deeper you fall into it, making it your career, you still have to remember to yourself, okay, don't lose that love, because the moment that you lose that love is the
Everything's gone.
moment that you don't want to make it your career anymore. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you do feel waves, right? Everything comes in waves, I've noticed.
Yeah.
So there's days where I'm creative and I'm on top of the world and everything is great. And, going to a shoot doesn't feel like work. But there is days it does feel like work. There's days where I'll get a last minute request from BMW and like, hey, we need this done in like 2 days. And it's a massive project. You have to, like you said, remember why you started it. And remember how lucky you are to be exactly here right now, and how much work it took to get there.
Yeah.
And is it better than a situation you could have been in, or is it worse? And if it is worse, then fix it, right? But if it's
Right.
better, which it probably is because you're doing something you love, keep doing it. Because every time I've wanted to quit, every time I've wanted to stop, every time I've looked at my friends who, have, paid vacation off on their normal 9 to 5 job, I go, maybe I want that. But then I realize I'm like, no, I love this. This is what
Right.
it is. It doesn't always have to feel like a party. It will feel like work sometimes, but you have to realize if you love it, you have to keep doing it.
Dude, I love that so much. And, again, for you to go ahead and tell yourself that, because there are no guarantees. The only guarantee that, like, in your case, your next project is your biggest project
Yep.
every single time, because that's what's going to go ahead and be paying your bills and stuff. And
Yep.
like, as an entrepreneur, from your standpoint, that's got to be terrifying to an extent. I mean,
It is.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
you think of it in a sense of like, okay, I know what I need to do in order for, have a good month and things of that nature. But do you ever want to, like, when was the moment, Josh, that you thought to yourself, as you had gone ahead and made this your career, when was the moment that you stopped being terrified and just said, this, I know exactly what I need to do in order to be successful every single month?
That's a hard question because I think I am still terrified, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, like you said, every project is my biggest project. So if I get handed something big, like I just did a giant X5 25th anniversary shoot for BMW. That was a massive shoot. If I don't show up and put 110% into it, they may never call me back, right? They may never want anything else done. So I think in a way you have to stay a little terrified. Let it fuel you. Don't let it overwhelm whatever you're about to
Right.
do. But make sure you understand, like, you have to show up every single time. And like I said, it's exhausting, right? It is tiring. It's exhausting. It feels like it pulls a lot out of you. But again, let it fuel you. Let it make you strive to be better every single time when you show up.
No, I hear that. We've brought up BMW a couple different times and whatnot, and I think that's an amazing thing because, again, the word you said earlier was Mako dealerships. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Mako. Yeah,
Okay, Mako. So, but the 25th anniversary project that you just went ahead and did with BMW, that was through BMW USA, I assume,
that was
correct?
a USA project. Yeah.
That's so crazy, dude. So where was it, or when was it, that you were able to go ahead and make that connection, and the fact that you now have, as what I can only imagine, an incredibly strong relationship with one of the biggest automotive and enthusiast brands out there? Like, how did that come about?
So that's why I mentioned luck earlier. So very lucky.
Yeah.
I posted on a Facebook group a bunch of photos that I took, and this was probably about 2.5 years ago.
Back when
And
Facebook was still relevant.
yeah, exactly. What's funny is, like, I truly hate Facebook more than
Me
anybody.
too,
I
dude.
think it's just for, no offense to anybody who is actually listening, that's maybe 75, but it's for that generation, right? And
Right. Yeah.
it kind of sucks. I don't want to see
My mom every once in a while, listen, she's not 75, but like, the only reason why I still have a Facebook is because my mom has an Android, so we can't do FaceTime. So we go ahead and do Facebook Messenger calls instead.
Yep.
That's the only reason why I still have an active Facebook account, which
Yep.
is true.
It's yeah, I despise Facebook, but there
Yeah.
is a few little golden nuggets that still exist in the Facebook realm. And it is these, like, little tiny, photography groups that are
Right.
popping off. They really, really have really active people asking for criticism, people giving criticism. So I posted in one of these groups, And a guy who works for a company called Space Auto. Space Autos, they have a contract with BMW doing marketing for them.
Okay.
He goes, "We need a photographer. You're kind of perfect for this. We need like commercial style." He's like, "What do you think about it?" I'm like, "Okay, this sounds like a scam. Doesn't sound real. Sure." Yeah, I was just like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, I'll fly out to Dallas. We can meet up, and then we'll go continue our trip to South Carolina, and we can do a shoot for BMW. It's a pretty big shoot." I'm like, "All right, sounds good." So I did it again. So I'm like, "Am I going to get stabbed or robbed? Probably. I don't know. Who knows?" But he showed me credentials. I see BMW USA emails. I'm like, "This looks legit." So
Right.
right. So I show up, and it's legit. There's a bunch of BMWs at a port in South Carolina, and he's like, "All right, let's get rolling." But it's luck. So he reached out to me basically off of a post I did on Facebook in one of these groups. That's it.
Wow.
It's luck. I'm telling you, everybody goes ask me, how did you do it? Is it like some crazy networking? No, it's not. I think networking is just me posting on social media and being in the culture and talking to other people. But like I always tell everybody, it's 65-70% luck.
That's crazy, dude. But that's awesome, man. And the fact that your work was obviously standing out enough for a marketing agency that works with BMW USA to go ahead and say, hey, that's the guy.
Yep.
Because there's so many. Because when it comes to those types of projects and whatnot, I assume that it's not just one photographer. There's a multitude of photographers who are doing different styles, right? So,
Yeah.
or is it usually just the one so the vision can stay comprehensive throughout the
So
thing?
it depends. So this is the thing that kind of blew my mind when I figured it out. So BMW doesn't actually hire anybody for like their marketing team
Yeah.
almost anybody for that matter. Everybody works through a contracting company.
Mm.
So if you want to talk about like running ads, like banner ads, Facebook ads, mobile ads, that's one company. If you're talking about like training classes and like teaching how like some dealers how to sell cars correctly, that's a whole nother contracting company. For the visual aspect of it, it's a whole nother company. So it is purely based off of results. BMW doesn't actually have to hire or fire anybody. They can just let go of an entire agency.
Interesting. That is so fascinating.
And most manufacturers, like OEM manufacturers, run that same way. The way that
Yeah,
they can clean house, that's why they can go, "Oh, this guy's fired now." And now everybody that's related to that same vision is gone too.
no, which makes perfect sense. I just feel like it's an interesting game to play, but I guess when the brand itself is just trying to go ahead and focus on selling and building the best cars that they possibly can, it
Mhm.
probably is better and easier for them to go ahead and bring in outside agencies to go ahead and handle the other arms that they just say, we're going to let them handle it and stuff like that. That is fascinating. You mentioned the fact that you got flown out to South Carolina, and I do get a kick every once in a while because a lot of the German brands, obviously, and honestly, Japanese brands too, they
Yeah.
have their headquarters here in the United States. I mean, I don't know how many people realize that the Acura NSX second generation, as dope as it is, that was built in Ohio.
Yep. That's
You know
American
what I'm
made.
saying?
That's an
It's
American car.
American made car. It's an
Yep.
American made Japanese supercar.
Yep.
Makes no sense. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the BMW X3, I think the X5, and one of the sedans they're built in South Carolina.
So every SUV is built in South Carolina.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Every
yeah,
one of them. And soon, some other cars I can't quite talk about yet that are going to be
right.
released for BMW will also be built in South Carolina.
That's fascinating. You, as somebody from the outside that came into the game, and I'm going to ask you about your BMW fandom in a second, but like, do you find that interesting? Because I sure as hell do. Like, it's I don't know, like, because for a long time we've known that American cars are made in Canada as well as in Mexico,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's weird to go ahead and see someone that's on the other side of the Atlantic be building their SUVs on our side.
I
I
think it
don't,
has to do with a few things, though. So I think it is one, United States is the second highest purchaser of BMWs, and the number one, well, almost number one, it's getting close, of purchasing of SUVs.
right.
So if you look at just sales metrics, it makes a lot of sense to build it here, so you can save money on shipping costs, right?
100%. Yeah.
SUVs are heavy; they take up a lot of cargo space on a
Yeah.
ship. So they go, let's build them here. Let's find that I mean, BMW's been in South Carolina for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact year. I'm sure I could figure that out, but
Maybe at least, I mean, I feel like at least 20, maybe like
I,
two decades, right?
I think if it's maybe, I think if it's since the 80s, I want to
That's
say.
crazy if it goes
Yeah,
all the way back that long. 40
it's
years. Wow.
it's pretty long time. Again, I could be mistaken on that. I don't want anyone fact checking on me, and I'm sure someone I know who's at BMW is gonna listen and yell at me. But yeah, it's it makes sense logistically. The number one country that purchases BMWs is China, just pure
Right.
off population, right? They're the number one purchaser of basically everything.
They're the
So
most populated country in the world. So that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I think India actually took them over recently.
Oh, did India? They keep flip flopping, don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a race to have as
It,
many people as possible.
I know, man. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's kind of wild, and to think that most Chinese families keep it to one kid is crazy. Or
yeah,
at least in
oh yeah,
China, obviously. So sorry, we got
yeah.
off on a tangent. But you're
No, no,
absolutely
I
right. They keep flip flopping back and forth. It's amazing.
it's a crazy race. I'm happy the United States isn't competing against because it's
For sure.
too many people. Like I'm already overwhelmed by how many people are here.
Bro,
And
if I'm not mistaken, aren't we the fourth most populated country in the world, or are we the third most populated country in the world?
I would
Because
probably
we have like, I want to say that the United States already has like over 400 million people in the country. I want to
yeah,
say.
I think you're right. I think it's about 400 million, if not slightly under.
Yeah.
And I think we might be number 3 or 4. I don't know.
I'll look it up, but I'm going to go ahead and let you continue to state what you were stating about BMW there.
Oh yeah, so it makes sense to have a port here in the United States to sell SUVs. But they've been here forever, and what they did is they basically found a place in the middle of nowhere, Greenville, South Carolina, and they go,
Yeah.
"We're going to build a plant here. We're going to create a ton of jobs, and grow from here." I want to say, if not maybe more, I think at least 70% of that entire town is employed by BMW.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So
It
when
does,
when I
wow.
drive a BMW around there, you're kind of, like everyone knows, like everyone works at BMW. Everyone's kind of friendly. Like even the cops there, if you're driving a brand new, BMW, they go, "This guy's just working." Like they kind of leave
Yeah.
everybody alone. It's a weird little cool town. I love it there. It's beautiful. It's friendly, and most people there are car enthusiasts, and that's
Sure.
what's awesome.
Well, it's so funny because I think that the Carolinas overall do get. I don't think, first of all, I'd like to go ahead and clarify. Yes, the United States is the third most populated country in the world, 345 million plus inhabitants. And there is about India is at 1.45 billion, and China right now is at 1.42 billion, or just under that. It's insane. So 2 billion of excuse me, but no, over 3 billion people of the world's population are in China and in India, and
And they're the
then
same continent. That's what's
they're
even
in the
crazier.
same continent over there. Asia's exploded, and I mean Japan, and then you look at how many people Japan has, and these tiny little islands and stuff like that. It is a very heavily populated section of the world, which is
Yep.
awesome. Um, I was bringing up BMW in South Carolina. I don't think people quite understand the driving roads aspect out in the Carolinas. I think
It's
North
crazy. It's
Carolina,
cool.
it is because it's like
Yeah.
this forest, and the further west you go into the states, it starts to get
hmm
quite a bit more mountainous. Because
hmm
isn't it the Appalachian Mountains are kind of around there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I would never give you geography advice. I'm not the best on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
But you're probably right. I think it is something like that. But the roads there are crazy. They're in the middle of nowhere. You just have trees on both sides of you, and you can kind of just push a car.
Wow. Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's a great area to drive in, and it's never really that hot there in comparison to here. So the
Sure.
heat soak aspect is not terrible.
I mean,
And then
you run into hurricane season down there, unfortunately, right?
it
And by the
rains,
way,
right? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And real quick, not to interrupt you, Joshua, I just want to go ahead and say it for the record right now. We're thinking of everybody out in Florida right now who got hit
Yeah.
by Milton. I got friends out in the Tampa area and whatnot. I just want to go ahead
Yep.
and send my love and prayers to them. And I know that several of them, they're out of power, and hopefully they can get power back.
Yep.
But mostly everyone seems to be okay. So thank God, but they're in my prayers regardless. And I'm sure that you agree with that. So shout out to
Oh,
everybody in
100%.
Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, or in the
I
southeast there.
texted a ton of my friends in Tampa and tons of even
Yeah.
my friends in Miami, like basically
Mhm.
anybody in that southern region of Florida. I texted all of them like, "Hey, you guys worried?" Every one of them said no.
Yeah.
I think they're,
I
I don't know, Floridians are just built different. You know,
Yeah, sure.
they,
I mean, I'm from Puerto
yeah.
Rico, dude, so I know
Oh, yeah.
exactly how that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That being said, and it looked like Milton started to go ahead and get weaker as it was getting towards Florida itself. But like,
Yeah.
there was like a day and a half that it was a full on category 5. We were talking like
Yep.
170-mile-an-hour winds. And I
Yep.
was like, this is going to be nasty. And like, I was looking at some of my friends' stories. Shout out to Samantha Zimmerman, Zimmy Arts on Instagram, fantastic car artist and all that good stuff. And so, like, she was given updates, and like one of the trees that was like right in front of her barn, like she saw it completely come down in like 90, like I think it was like 90-degree wind, or not 90-degree, 90-mile-an-hour winds or something like that.
Jeez.
And like, I was like, yo, that's crazy. And if I'm not mistaken, earlier today, the roof at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg
Yeah.
came
That's
off.
nuts.
Yeah.
That's
um
insane.
it is, but you're absolutely right. Floridians, they're built different. So shout out to all my Florida peeps, all over my cousin lives in Miami, and I know that she's doing well. But shout out to man, the Cole Bay. Shout out to my boy Jordan, a Keystone Page from DuPont. Shout out to Zam and her husband. Um, my boy race car Dilly Dills, even though he right now he wasn't in Florida, he went ahead and stayed behind, which was a solid thought.
Yeah.
But shout out to all those peeps out there. Got nothing but love and respect for them and all that good stuff. But you're absolutely right. The Carolinas, man, they're truly underrated gems when
Yep.
it comes to it in terms of driving aspects. What I'm curious to know, because you said 70% of the town of Greenville, essentially in that section of the state, is basically employed by the BMW factory down there. I'm
Mhm.
curious to know why the hell we're not seeing police cars be 3 series or 5 series over there, bro.
Dude, I know. I think that'd be the coolest car, honestly. I wish our cop cars here were M3s. I think people would, maybe not run as much, because, being in the car scene, you see it a lot, unfortunately. People
Yeah.
run. I don't support that.
They make for great videos, but don't do it.
Yeah, good video, good social content. Don't do it. And by no means would ever recommend that.
Yeah.
But yeah, M3, I think it'd be the coolest cop car of all time.
I couldn't
M3,
agree
and
with you
then
more.
if you had, an X5 with a bash bar on the front of it,
Mm-hmm.
like so sick. It'd be so sick.
For sure.
Maybe an X7 Alpina, just fully decked out. It'd
Oh,
be
that would
so
be
sick.
sick. No,
Yeah,
dude, you know what though? An F90 M5 would probably be the greatest police car ever.
it'd be
Like,
tough. Yeah, it'd be
dude,
tough.
I mean, here's like, okay, so a few months ago, I was having a conversation with somebody here on the podcast, and then for whatever reason, the video re-popped up on my feed earlier today, and it was this F80 M3 running from Georgia State Patrol in the middle of downtown Atlanta, and
Dude.
what was chasing them was the Georgia State Patrol in their Chargers. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't even have the 6.4 Hemis. They had the 5.7s.
Mhm.
And like, don't get me wrong, that's a quick car, sure, but it's not as fast as the F80.
No,
And
not
yet,
even close.
somehow, some way, clearly driving skill is what went ahead and,
Yeah.
assisted here. But the Chargers were keeping up with that F80. And
Yep.
like, to the point where I was just like, what is in those Chargers, man? Like,
I mean, driver mod, right? I think that's the
sure,
biggest issue,
100%.
right? Driver mod. I think cops there especially are trained to
Yeah.
chase because people, I mean, Atlanta is one of the craziest cities I've ever been to be
Yeah.
honest. People say Miami is the craziest. Miami is just party crazy.
Hmm.
Atlanta is truly like the craziest
Kind of
place
nuts.
of all time.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's a cool, beautiful city, but you see stuff there for sure. And people run all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You see cops chasing people all the time there.
It's
So
so
yeah,
wild.
I think it is. I think it's driver mod. Be a better
Yeah.
driver if you want to get away. Or those cops are also pretty trained. They know that you're going to probably run, and they know license plates that do run, so they're gonna hunt you down.
It's so weird because they have the choppers too. So it's like they could go
Yeah,
ahead and let the chopper go ahead and catch you. But what sometimes you read the comments is like, oh, the cops are they're what are they doing? They're endangering everyone around them. Here's what I want also to people understand, and we're talking about just car chases in general. Yeah, you can use the chopper, but the chopper's not going to be the one that actually pulls over the car. The
no,
chopper is the one that's keeping the eye on said car. And that way, the units in the area can
yep,
finally get to said car to go ahead and either do a pit maneuver or somehow pull them over or
yep,
whatever that is. the cop cars do still have to go ahead and keep up, and they do have to pick up the pace in
Yeah.
order to be able to go ahead and make that traffic stop, because the real endangerment happens to be that car that's going ahead and making all these crazy turns and, you know,
Wrong way
tripling
driver. Yeah.
limit
80
everything,
miles an
right?
hour. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
dude.
It's
Oh my
dangerous.
gosh. If I'm not mistaken, this F80, I think that it was bombing through the interstate there in downtown Atlanta. I think they were getting up to like 130 plus miles an hour. An F80 doing 130 in the middle of downtown Atlanta is fast as all hell. Like, I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. 130 is quick.
So yeah, talking about speed and numbers, people are always the first to be like, "Oh, that's not a lot of horsepower. That's not that fast." But I think the internet's ruined speed for people. 130 miles an hour is very fast,
Extremely.
especially through traffic through a city.
Yep.
It's crazy. I mean, like I've gone fast. I've never done 130 through an interstate or intersection. Right? That's crazy.
Right. I don't. I'm not. I'm not going to say anything.
Mm, mm.
To incriminate myself.
Yeah,
130 is fast as all hell.
very fast.
Extreme.
Yeah,
Dude, I'll do it. I was coming back from NorCal the other day.
in Mexico,
And
you mean?
yeah, I was coming back
Yeah,
from Mexico. I was
yeah,
all in Antarctica. No, but
yeah,
my point was, like sometimes there's so much traffic that you are going faster than everyone else, and you
mm,
still aren't going that much faster. But because you're going faster than everyone, it's like, oh wow, everything starts to really speed up really quickly or slow down, whichever way you want to look at it. And you're like, damn, dude, there is that gap between myself and this and these all these other cars. Like at some point you have to realize, shoot, what do I do? Like,
yeah,
yeah, like you have no other option other than to slow down. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? So like 130 on a freeway with traffic,
yeah.
that's fast,
Yeah.
you
I've
know?
I've done my fair share of speeding, and
We all do it.
yeah, it's one of those things, in Mexico, you get to race and explore how fast your car is with other
Mhm.
people, and 130 is fast. Generally the races that again I've done, not in the United States, stop at like 160. So again, pretty fast, but
Yeah.
you get to 160 pretty quick, and then you
Yeah. Yeah.
slow, and everyone slows right down, and then you either race again, or everyone says, "Cool, we'll go home and have a good night." That's
Exactly.
yeah,
No, I hear that, dude. Um, but you now that you've been associated with BMW for such a long period of time, working with them and whatnot, would you say that the BM, because I clearly you're an appreciator of BMW to an extent, your car
yep.
has a BMW engine.
It's a
We'll
Z4
talk.
M40i. Yeah,
It's a Z4 M40i, or you know what, a detuned M2 comp, whatever way you really want to look at it and whatnot.
yeah.
Either way, would you say that your fandom for BMW went up when you started to work with them, or has that always been a brand that you've always appreciated and had love and respect for from the beginning?
So actually, my love for BMW actually grew, to be
Okay,
honest, from shooting with them. And the reason why is not because the M3s or the M5s. I've always loved those, right? I
right.
mean, seeing my first M5, fully built, right, big turbo on it. I was like probably, I don't know, 16, 17. I'm like, that car's sick. That's what I want.
Would
I
this
want
have
something
been
like that.
F10? I assume.
Yeah, yep, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, F10s are
Um,
awesome, dude.
dude, awesome, right?
Yeah,
And unfortunately, not the most reliable, but that's neither here nor there.
right.
So I remember seeing M5s, as a kid, M3s as a kid. I'm like, these are so sick. I've always loved them. I've always been a fan of just sports cars in general, and BMW's
Right.
always done that cool balance of like it's luxurious, but it's still a driver's car. That's
Absolutely.
what I love about them. But my love grew for BMW more because I realized how actually incredible their SUVs were too.
Sure.
I was kind of blind to it, right? I think most cars enthusiasts, we don't really breach into like the SUV world unless you're like a track hawk guy. That's a whole different realm. Yeah.
Me, I
Yep.
love a track hawk, bro. I would
Yeah.
I would drop 90 grand on a track hawk today if I could.
Dude,
100% be the greatest dad mobile ever, bro.
so besides that SUV, what other SUV are people like really passionate about?
I mean,
That's a street SUV.
I mean, Urus is, but that's in a whole different
It's a
bracket,
whole,
right?
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
a Trackhawk is like
AM,
the most tangible.
yeah, sure. I mean, you could also go ahead and say Mercedes AMGs like the GLSs.
Yeah.
But even that, but
It's not the same realm.
It's not the same realm compared to like an X5 and X6M or an X3M, like a
Dude.
X3 comp.
Yep.
It's really not the same. I'm trying to go ahead and think of anything else. Like, oh, you know what? I mean, this goes along with the Trackhawks. You know, if you're a Durango SRT or Durango
Yep.
Hellcat fan, which
Yeah.
I also happen to love and appreciate.
So rare. Those are so rare, by the
Oh,
way.
dude, Durango SRTs in particular. Like, I love the Durango Hellcats, but I like the Durango SRT because it's not 700 horsepower. It's
Hmm.
like just around 500. And I'm like, that's enough. That's enough.
And it's a full size
it's
SUV.
it's a full size SUV at 500 horsepower. Like that's
Yeah.
a fast
Yeah.
SUV.
The
I
kids can
don't need
only get
any
to
more.
soccer practice so fast, you know. I mean,
Exactly.
it's
I'm not going to be blowing 130 on the freeway every time, right? I'm
no,
just
if
not
you're
going to
running
do
from
that.
cops with kids in the back of your SRT Durango, question life, you know. You've done some weird things in your life. Um,
Tell me about it, bro.
but yeah, I mean, I think just the SUVs in general, I think BMW to me was, you know, just cars. And then all of a sudden, X3Ms, X5Ms,
Right.
X6Ms, even the BMW XM, which gets so much hate and people are so wrong about that car,
Mm.
you don't realize how incredible and how fast these are real driver cars, but they're just
Yeah, yeah.
SUVs. And you know, even going it's not as fast as the rest of these ones, but the Alpina, the XB7, that is
I love
one of the it's dude, it's the top, it's probably the top, I would say top 8 SUVs that are factory made I've driven of all time.
That's
And
pretty
that's coming from
amazing.
somebody who I think I've driven basically everything underneath the sun at this point. That's one of my favorite SUVs. And that's not being biased because I shoot for BMW. I could shoot for Mercedes and I would still hold true to that.
Sure. Well, Alpina's so interesting, right? Because they take a BMW product
Hmm.
and instead of unlike let's use AMG for 1 second, right?
Yeah.
For those who didn't know, AMG used to be separated from Mercedes
Hmm.
up until like about 25, 30 years ago when Mercedes actually bought them, brought them in house, and
Hmm.
now they're absolutely a part of Mercedes. But for a while, AMG was not a subsidiary, but someone who went ahead and tuned Mercedes.
Yeah.
And the
It's like
same
a trusted manufacturer, like upgrade shop.
exactly. And so what AMG would do would be make the cars faster, make them more hardcore, make the suspensions stiffer, yada,
Hmm.
yada, yada. Alpina does the opposite. Yeah, it makes the cars a little bit faster, but they're built for comfort. They're
Hmm.
not built for raw speed. They're not built for the track.
Hmm.
And because of that, someone like myself who's a little bit older and whatnot who wouldn't mind actually having some comfort in his life, the
Yeah.
Alpina speaks to me the most. On top of that, they're drop dead gorgeous and
Yep.
their wheel selections are incredible.
It's some of the best.
Everything. I just don't
BMW in
understand
general
it.
has the best wheel selection, I think, out of any manufacturer. I truly don't know anyone that's better at making wheels than BMW. I've never seen a Chevy or a Ford with stock wheels. I'm like, those are sick.
Sure.
Never. I can't. Even Mercedes, they have great wheels, but I don't think they touch like the G80 wheels, the ones that you see with the crazy spoked wheels that have all
Yeah.
the different angles on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a name for them. I don't know. Those are insanely good wheels, right?
Yeah.
Alpina does even better with the very clean blades on them. Everything looks so good on it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's just BMW and Alpina come together. Their wheel selection is unbeatable.
I agree with you. There's a particular wheel that I always think of, um, and it's on the F80 M3 competition,
Hmm.
and it's like the diamond bladed
Hmm.
wheels or whatever. It's similar to what the M2 comp is, but it's slightly different with their design. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. And to be quite honest, so Josh, I'm not too sure if you've actually listened to any of the TT episodes in the
I
past, and it's all
have,
good.
yeah.
Oh, well, I think you were
I've
kind.
listened to quite a bit of them, to be honest.
Thanks, man. That means the freaking world, to be quite honest with you. So then you might have heard my absolute obsession with the fact that if money was no object right now
Hmm.
and I had unlimited funds, I would absolutely find the cleanest F87 M2 CS right
Hmm.
now in the country, and it would be parked right next to my Sorrento, and I'd call it a day.
Yep.
The M2 CS wheels, in particular in gold,
Yep.
chef's kiss.
There's one in Florida right now.
For how much?
I think it's a lot more than I would anticipate. I think it's close to 90. It has a lot of
They're
miles on
so
it.
all over.
Yeah,
They're so all over the place right now. It's
yeah.
so weird.
Low mile clean ones are above, six figures.
Yeah,
High mileage ones that have been through 6 or 7 owners, you can find them for like 85, 90.
that's a lot of money. That's the thing. It's
It's
a
a,
lot of money.
it's again, the CS is great. It's a great car, but is it a title at that point? Are
That's
you
what I
buying the
keep
title?
asking myself,
And I,
especially with the fact that the M2 comp exists. I
yep,
wondered to myself whether or not and additionally, M4 CSs are like 60 grand. So it's
yeah,
like why wouldn't I just go for an F82 M4 CS and call it a day? Right. Obviously, I can't afford it right now. But like if I was, why would I go ahead and say I'm gonna drop 25 grand more when clearly the bigger and better car is less expensive?
yep.
And it might be better, to be quite honest with you. I'm
Well,
not sure.
it's like for example, like the new G80s. Those hold value way better than their M4. They're identical cars. There's no difference. Basically, at all besides the 2 extra doors. On the
Yeah.
M3. But the M3s just hold their value. If you look on like any like used or private auction or private party sale,
Yeah.
they are always consistent on pricing. M4s range like crazy. Like
Yeah,
someone
they
has
do.
an ugly interior spec drops by 15 grand, which is
Yep.
crazy to me.
It's
So
weird.
they both drive the same. I've tracked both of them, which is very cool. To be honest, I like the M4 a little bit better on the track, but in terms of day usage, the M3 is the king. It's more you bring your friends with you, and
Yeah.
that's what's cool. So yeah, it's hard, right? If you had unlimited money, M2 CS it's a great car. It's just the money for the enjoyment is enjoying it, seeing it, or is enjoying it, feeling it.
Yeah, true. I think the biggest thing about it is the like when they released the launch spec of the F87 M2 CS,
Yeah.
when they released it in the Misano blue with the gold wheels,
Yep.
I was like, that might be the greatest looking BMW I've ever seen in my lifetime.
So I don't know if this is if this is me speculating. It probably
Yeah.
is. But did they take that idea essentially from the Subaru STI Hawkeye?
Dude, I wonder the same thing because
Because that was one of my
also,
favorite cars as a kid ever.
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Dude, last gen STIs, if you could get them in the same blue with the gold wheels, I would
Sick. Yep.
done.
Yep.
Take my money. Like,
Yep.
so I don't care if my engine blows on the way home. It's
Yep.
gonna look good while
Yep.
doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm actually on my second FA20 motor, so that's funny because I've blown up that one too. Those do like to blow up dead stock, which is great.
Sick. You love
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah.
But
It seems like I blow up a lot of cars at this point. So yeah. Um,
well, let's get back to BMW in a second. Let's talk about your car that you have been building for quite a while. So you do own a Mark V
mhm.
Toyota Supra.
Yep.
What year is it?
That's a 21. So it's an
It's a 21.
A91. Yeah.
Okay, so that's I mean, not that the bad that the A90 wasn't a bad year. It was a very good year actually. But the A91 is the one that stock it came with the 380 horsepower, right?
Yeah, a
And
little bit more
A91 was
power.
that the first year with the 6-speed manual? Or was that the
No,
following
no.
year?
I think the first year of a six-speed manual was beginning of 23,
Was
and
it
they were
23? Okay.
yeah. So I
I
think they're
got you.
about a year old now.
Okay.
So no, mine is mine's the 8-speed auto. It's
Which is a great trans, the
it
ZF.
it's a great trans. A lot of people don't realize that Hellcats also have the same trans.
Yes.
So people always well, for some reason people go you have to build a trans, right? Which you should, 100%. But I mean Hellcats are 700 horsepower and they just have basically a bigger or stronger clutch. That's basically
Sure.
so great
Memory
trans.
serves me right. Didn't ZF make the dual clutch automatics for the Z06? Well, actually, for the C8 Corvette and the S550 Shelby GT 500s. I mean, I know
Um,
that I know this is dual clutch as opposed to a transaxle,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure ZF made those dual clutch automatics for those two particular cars.
I couldn't say for sure. Unfortunately, my like American car knowledge is pretty limited, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's one of the best German engineering companies of all time. They've tried and
Sure.
tested everything, and obviously their transmissions have been proven to hold power. I mean,
Big
like
time.
actual power. But yeah, I've been building a car for a while. I've actually owned the car for coming up on 2 years,
Okay.
a year and a half, and I've had it in my possession for about 3 months.
That's so brutal, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I
When
did
you
it to
bought it,
myself.
no, I get you. Did you buy it stock or did you already buy it as a
Um,
project?
it had an intake manifold on it.
Okay.
I bought it from Luxury Auto Collection because at that point in time I was shooting for them.
Sure, yeah. Shout out to
And
Luxury Auto Collection. That's what's
oh
up.
yeah, yeah. Johnny's the owner. He's the man. Everybody there, I love all of them to death. They're good guys. They will see me one day when I go buy my R8 V10 Plus or 911 Turbo. Hopefully sooner than later. So they'll see me again.
No, for
Um,
sure. At the rate you're going, for sure, bro.
I mean, we'll get to that a little bit too. So that's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting. You know, yeah, bought it from them. Had an intake manifold on it. Nothing really serious on it. You know,
Right.
it was just basic bolt-ons, nothing crazy. Had reasonable miles on it, and they were sitting on it for a while. I'm like, this is not your guys' like scene. You know, guys are not in like the JDM like Euro scene. You guys are in like luxury and it's an exotic scene. I'm like,
Right.
what do you guys want for it? So they gave me a really good deal on it. So I'm like, all right, let's send it. So I bought it. Um, I decided that it was too slow. So we put P800 turbos on it, um, and port injection and methanol, and blew up the first P800 turbo in like 3,000 miles.
Dang.
It
How
was
much power was it making when you went ahead and did all those changes?
I could tell you a butt dyno.
Okay.
At that time, it wasn't super dialed in. I would say probably six maybe 650.
That's a healthy number for a Mark V.
Very
I would
much
say.
so.
Very
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was more. It was honestly, I should have been happy with that.
Yeah. I appreciate the way that you said that so nonchalantly. It's like, no, I should have been happy, and I chose to keep pushing it because
Yeah,
I think the right amount of horsepower for the Supras nowadays. I think if you could chill at around 400 to 500, I think you're good. I don't think you
yeah,
actually need to go ahead and push any further. 600, I think is solid. Once you
yeah,
start to go above that, I get it. You want to be making the same power as what the two JZs are capable of making and whatnot. But I don't think people quite realize how much work needs to go into that 2JZ in order for it to be making 1100, 1200 to the wheels or whatever,
no,
right?
they have literally no clue, and it blows my mind. They're
Yeah.
like, well, 2JZ can hold that much power. I'm like, no, it can't. And also, the MK4 Supras when they came out, even the turbos, slow from the factory, very slow, and people don't understand that. I'm like, people are brainwashed by social media thinking that the MK4 was the greatest thing to ever hit Earth. I'm like, nope, that motor has taken 35 years to become what it is today.
Sure. I agree with you. I mean, there's Alex Royce from Hennessy. Shout out to Alex. He's been on the pod before and whatnot.
Yeah,
Amazing guy. He's got a Mark IV.
yeah,
And he told me that on his kill mode, it's making like I think 1200, which
yep,
I'm like, that's who like you thought that was normal?
yeah.
But
No,
again,
it's
he's
not.
in Texas and he works for Hennessy. Like, of course that would be normal,
Yeah,
right? And so much has to go into the 2JZ in the same way that so much has to go into an RB26 and an
yep.
R34.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to go ahead and make those 1,000+ horsepower and things of that nature. And I'm like, just like, you do realize it's going to take a lot of money to go ahead and make it into these like nine
Yeah,
second cars.
and you can make anything fast. I always tell people this, like, what should I build? Right? I want to go fast. What should I build? I'm like, well, one, again, I don't know why people ask me this. I I'm not the guy to go fast. I've gone a little fast, right? But there's other guys
Sure.
who know way more than me. But I tell people, if you want to throw your purse at anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you can make it fast. But you
Right.
have to have money, and that's the problem. I think people don't understand. OEM Plus world is the best world to be in. It's
Yes.
some bolt-ons, an intake, a downpipe, whatever you want to do to the car. That's just bolt-ons. That is the best area to leave a car in. The second you get into pulling a motor apart or an entirely new turbo system or completely changing the car's original design,
Mhm.
that is where problems lie. And then that's where money really starts burning. I mean,
Right.
aggressively.
Right.
And I think
So
I'm feeling that right now more than I've ever felt.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, because
Yeah,
like, what is the act like? You're supposed to be at 4 digits in your Mark V. Is that correct? I mean, obviously, we. So should
it
we
will
pull
be.
the should we pull the curtain back for 1 second, Josh, and let the
Yeah.
people know what exactly was supposed to go ahead and be our interaction as a podcast first? Because
Yeah, so I was, yeah, oh man. So,
I'm sorry to hurt. No,
yeah,
I feel
no,
so bad, but it was true. Like we
yeah,
had a plan, and then the plan kind of fell apart,
it
unfortunately.
it did, yeah. So
And
I
some
had yeah, I mean, I thought it would be a really cool idea to have, a podcast, almost like a cars and coffee podcast in my
Yeah,
car while driving, right?
right. It
Um,
would have been amazing.
I was going to let you drive it, experience it while, still interviewing
Yeah,
because, interviewing somebody like we are right now is one thing, but I think interviewing somebody in a car with that much power is a whole nother realm, right? Because
I agree.
there's a whole nother fourth wall you're breaking.
Completely
So
agree.
yeah, the original idea was to have you and we interview in my car, and I think it would have been awesome. And then we could have cut to this, right, which would have been a nice little sit down, and you get a little bit
100%.
1-to-1 with somebody. It's
Mhm.
always nice to see a face, in person. And the car unfortunately didn't make it. Um,
It was close. It was close.
it was all the dyno.
It was on the dyno. And I get the message from Josh saying, like, bro,
Yeah,
looks like we're not gonna be able to do it. And I was like, ooh, I am so sorry about that. Like, what was it? So it blew. It was that one of the cylinders went out. Do
yeah.
I remember that
Cylinder
correctly?
number 6 decided to completely leave the chat,
Leave
so
the chat.
that was good. That was an interesting call because Ricky works at Harrison. That's who's building my car. Ricky was sending me videos of the car, the dyno, and they obviously know I'm excited because the car's been in the shop forever. I mean, since May 16th, I think. So it's like 140 days. Um, he sent me a video of it on the dyno, of the top mount turbo, spinning. I'm like, cool, this is sick. He sent me a video of it revving, excited. And
Right.
then I get a call about 4 hours later from Richard Harrison, the owner. He's like, hey, so we were on your ethanol dyno and your cylinder 6 decided to let go. And I was like, cool. What do we do now?
Brutal. So what do we do now? Like, what is the next step?
So we're gonna pull. Yeah, well, this is the other thing. So we're gonna pull the whole motor.
Yeah.
So with the whole motor comes, the freshly installed turbo kit. So everything has to come out. Um, then we're going to pull apart the head and the short block, and we'll kind of diagnose from there. If the head is good, which I hope it is, because the heads on those cars can hold quite a bit of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're either gonna go new internals. So I mean, probably a little bit upgraded, nothing crazy. If the block has a hole in it, then I have to throw more of my wallet at this car. And I might as well just go like a 3.2 stroker and
Right.
just make it a race car at this
For
point.
sure.
Or, say screw it, go buy a, Honda Odyssey and part that car out and just be happy with what I have. It just, I don't know at this point.
I hear you, dude. I'm so like, you get into the game, right?
Hmm.
And you continue you go down the rabbit hole and you find things. And this is the funness of cars, but it
Yeah.
can also bite you in the ass, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. Like, the great thing about these in particular, which remind me which engine it is again. It's the which one?
B58.
The B58, which is an
Yep.
M340i 440i engine,
Yep.
and whatnot. So that one comes single turbo from factory,
Correct.
right?
Yep. Single turbo.
Whereas the S58, which is in the M cars, that's a twin turbo.
Twin turbo.
Um, and so what's so great about these engines is nobody has ever said, "Oh, the BMW engines that are in the parent plants that are in there now suck." That
No.
actually they are the new 2JZs of today. Hence the
Agreed.
reason why Toyota said, okay, we're going to partner up with BMW, use that power plant because it's the best inline six out on the market.
Dude,
They're the
it's a
ones.
2JZ, but it's just reversed. It's backwards.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
like the cam gears are behind it, and the cam gears on the front. So like you have it's it's just reversed, but the turbos are on
Yeah.
the same side.
Exactly. No, shout out to BMW because BMW they clearly are having to me, and I say this
Mhm.
with all the love and the respect because I love BMW, but they are to me having some type of identity crisis with their looks and whatnot.
Can I
But
give you a
I
little bit of
will,
a secret
yeah, please.
about that? I think I'm allowed to say this. If I'm not, I'll get clarification, and then
Okay.
may have to cut it. But
Yo, hey man, if we're gonna get an exclusives on TT, I'm always down for an exclusive on TT.
and again, I don't know what exclusive it is because I don't know. We'll find out. I'll ask somebody, but I'll just tell you now.
Yeah.
That designer got fired.
All
He
right
needed
then.
to be. Yep. Everybody
Eh,
knows it. Everybody in BMW, the employees all knew something was being done wrong. People all of a sudden go, "What happened to these beautiful cars? Why are you guys
Yeah,
making them so ugly?"
yeah.
I will defend the XM. I do like the XM. I do like the big snout. And now everyone loves the new
That's
G.
an SUV. It's
It's SUV.
okay. That makes
Yep.
sense. Everything about that is big.
But the designer who did the new G80, he did the front end design, and he was in charge of that, and people hated it at first.
Huh?
I remember seeing so many people talk about the new front end, and they're like, "Oh, it's so ugly," but now people like it. You get a Vorsteiner, front end kit on it, and it looks sick.
Get a darker colored spec car. G80s
Yep.
and G82s look way better. I've not entirely changed my mind on it, but I can definitely appreciate them more now. I can appreciate them more now, especially because of G90.
Yep.
G90, and you and I kind of talked about that a couple of months back. It's like
Hmm.
I like G90 for the most part, but there are some aspects of G90 where I do question my sanity a little bit. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? But that is really important to know. Like, that it was an issue
Hmm.
when the guy that was at BMW went to Kia and Hyundai, and then Hyundai and Kia started to go ahead and knock it out of the park in terms
Dude,
of looks.
I'm so upset that I see Hyundais. I'm like, that's not a bad looking car.
Dude, I'm telling
I'm
you.
mad I have to say that to myself. I'll see a Kia and I'm like, why does this look good?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, because the designers that won our heart over in BMW are now winning the hearts over, and they're making
Sure.
probably way more money doing this.
That, and then on top of that, good on Hyundai and good on Kia and good on Genesis for saying,
Hmm.
let's spend that money. Let's bring those guys in. Let's
Hmm.
go ahead and make our cars good looking because the thing was that not only did Hyundai and Kia and Genesis overall, which is a part of of Hyundai, obviously, not only did they start to make good cars, but they also went ahead and made
They made
they
performance
needed
cars.
right. They needed to go ahead and make nicer cars to go along with the fact that they were making good cars. So good
Hmm.
on them for making that distinction. That's pretty good.
The only thing I will say is Kia Soul is still the worst car ever made. I will die by that. I think it's the
I,
ugliest car ever made. And every time I see one, I get upset because they're so ugly. I actually rather drive a PT Cruiser than a Kia Soul.
I don't know, bro.
I know it's a hot,
Ah,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
hot take.
Dude, Josh in a PT Loser, I could see it, right? I would put the wood walls on the side of the doors. I would make it look sick. You
Sure.
can't make a Kia Soul look good. I don't care. It's the worst car ever made.
I mean, my mom, shout out to my mom. She drives a Kia Soul, but she's not really a car enthusiast. I'm the only car enthusiast in the family. So I know what you're talking about. I have a
My,
Kia
my friend
Sorento.
Cody, my friend Cody used to drive one. My friend Zach Curley drives one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I tell him all the time, it's the worst car ever made.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad car. It's just I don't know if I'd take a PT Cruiser over a Soul. But good on Hyundai and good
Yeah.
on all those brands for making the distinction of saying we're going to start building good cars, and then they obviously ended up making really good electric cars. And then on top of
Mhm.
that, they were like, okay, now let's make them good looking. Which brings me
Yeah.
back, yeah,
Hyundai made a shifting electric car, or kind
dude.
of. Yeah,
Everybody loves the icon. Is it the Ionic
dude.
5N?
I
Yeah,
think yeah, you can
everybody
you
loves that
it
car.
has sound and you can shift it. I'm like, well, you just solved almost all the problems besides the charging issues. But there, I was happy. I'm like, that's what we needed. Everyone asked for that. Make a car not feel like an electric car, and we'll buy it. And guess what? They're doing numbers right now.
I couldn't agree with you more, dude. I think that they're knocking out of the park, which brings me back to BMW because BMW, they were having that identity crisis. And obviously now that you've mentioned what you said, but th- their engines aren't a problem. You know,
Nope.
the S50, like the I may say all I want to say about the G80 and the G82, but the
Mhm.
S58 might be one of the best engines on the market today. There's a reason why people went ahead and bought a G80 and a G82, and all of a sudden you got people running nines or something like that. In particular
Chris,
with M,
or not
yeah,
Chris, Mike Body, what he did to the Supra, he's the reason why. So he has the fastest Supra in the world to this
okay,
day, I believe. Not the highest horsepower, but the fastest one and a quarter mile. Um, he has an M3 now, a G80, and he's about to make that beat the B58. He's not done it yet, but he's close. I think it's 1,800 horsepower he has it at right now. Yeah. So I
wow,
mean, find me another manufacturer that has the same platform that can support this. I just don't see it anymore. I mean, Mercedes has gotten out of like the competition.
what the when they said they were going to go ahead and put a four cylinder, and obviously they're going back on that when it came to the
Yeah.
C63.
I mean, Audi's hanging on by a thread,
Barely. I mean, their
barely.
RS3, the RS3 is cool, but
It's a great
like,
car.
with the five cylinder and the twin turbo setup on that,
Yep.
that's pretty cool. But,
Yep. But the
you know,
differentials explode, and unfortunately, the trans like to go out in those too. And
exactly.
I truly, I'm happy that I get to shoot for a company that's more of a car enthusiast company and a driver focused community than a
Mhm.
luxury company. Audi's starting to go luxury. Mercedes has already done it,
Right.
and luxury can sell. I get there's a whole realm for that, but like the heart and soul of cars is driver people.
Sure.
It's people who want a car to drive the car.
I agree. And that's why I think the F8X platform is still to me near as perfect as what BMW will ever get to. Because you look at the G8X platform,
Hmm.
the technology started to get really heavy on that. And I understand that everybody went to technology wise and stuff like that. And the interiors on G8Xs are actually really nice. Like I've
Hmm.
seen them from the outside and whatnot. And they look really good as interiors, but there was a simpleness and a cleanliness and an effectiveness of the F8X platform
Yep.
where everything was just perfect isn't the right word, but
Well,
everything works.
it was peak old BMW, right? Like it was
Yeah,
peak. Like you saw the yellow gauges, right? The yellow lights and the gauges. That's iconic. That's been there forever.
right.
You have
Especially
it's.
when the engine's not fully warmed up yet. So like
Mhm,
Redline isn't at 7,500, it's like
mhm.
at 4 or 5 grand, and then it's gets closer and closer to Redline. I love that aspect.
I do love all F series are great. I truly do love them. I mean, mind you, the issues that we have found are very minimal. Some oil consumption, some coolant consumption, but most cars are kind of do that anyways.
Yeah.
Crank hub people freak out about, but I have friends who have pretty built, M3s, and they never did their crank hub and they're fine. So,
Right.
I
I
truly
have a
do
couple
think that's
friends too. I have one friend for sure who hasn't done it yet, and the car's running fine. It's for
yeah.
sale, but it's
Well,
running fine. Yeah,
that's
only for
that
sale because
part's
she wants to get rid of it, and that's all.
okay. Yeah. See, I'm
Yeah,
like, it's that part is the one thing people freak out about because I think shops push it a lot because it's a lot of money they can make on that because it's a big job. The part's really cheap, so you're just making 100% labor, and labor is the biggest money maker for shops, and I get that. But two is you can sell fear easier than you can sell anything else. So knowing that if your crank up fails, your motor goes too.
right,
You know, would you spend the money if or blow your car up? Right? Most people would spend the money.
for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, the F series is one of my favorite. I mean, it's I think well, how long has that platform been around for now? Like 12 years,
I
10
think
years,
first year of the F80 M3 was 2015.
2015. Okay,
Yeah, and
so
now that's
almost 10 years.
M3, and then M4 came right after that. And if you want to go all the way back to F10 M5, first year of that was like uh 12,
2012, I think. Yeah.
2012, and then the F90 came out in like 16 or maybe 7, I think it was 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think.
now that we're in G9 and G90 now and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I mean, you're so right because we all talk about the M3 and M4 and M2 being an incredible platform, but the BMW M5 F90 is probably that might actually be the best BMW ever made.
Yeah. I think it's up there for sure. I
You
really
know,
do.
like especially
Um,
when you go into CS, but like an M5 comp is like crazy great.
dude, I still see them on the road. I think that's how you know the community is really strong around those. And two, I think it's a, it's a pretty well made car considering
Yeah.
I still see them on the road. And look at Mercedes, for example, in that same time period. What do you see around in that generation?
A lot of C63s, but you don't see that many E63s. And
No,
I feel like I don't see that many S classes, to be honest.
it's all C63s,
Yeah.
all of them. And
And
I
I love a
think it's,
C63. Don't get me wrong. I do.
I do too. Do a twin turbo V8. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
mean
hate it.
the W205
Yeah.
it's yeah, right. The W205 is like that engine in the same way that the B58 and the S58 is fantastic. The 4-liter twin turbo might actually be the best engine on the market today.
I think so. If you can find one that's not been completely like destroyed or
Sure.
modded out, like all my friends who've had one
Stock
have
wise.
just, yeah, stock great, but all my friends who've just done crazy things to them and they're like, this thing is not doing good and they get rid of it.
Right.
I was like, well, don't do what I
You-
do.
exactly. No. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like we live in a time where car manufacturers are
So good.
they're so good, right,
Mhm.
Josh? And so like BMW, Mercedes,
Chevy making the
Chevy with the
best.
LT, the LT platform engines are incredible. Like,
Mhm.
what is it? I think it's are we in LT2? Yeah, the LT2 is what's this is the base 6.2 liter V8 and a C8 right now. And I think it was the LT1 in the just outgoing 6th gen Camaro SS and whatnot.
Mhm.
That like I think people forget that you can go ahead and buy that as a crank motor, and
Mhm.
it's making more power as a crank motor than it is when coming from factory. It's making
Mhm.
500 horsepower or 490. I mean,
It's a lot of power for a,
that's a lot of power. Do you really need
yeah,
to make 800?
no.
No, like,
I mean, did they need to make 1200 with the new C8, Yeah, like
yes, they did.
yeah. And that's I will always love any brand that decides to push the limit and they're like, we're
Yeah,
gonna put the biggest factory turbos ever, two of them
right.
on any car.
Hey, I'm so happy that you brought that up because I was reading through the comments and stuff like that. It's like, oh, uh, you went ahead and put the biggest turbos ever made and stuff like that, but you're still not making more than a Koenigsegg and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, this
Different
car's
realms.
also. I was like, this car's also like 220 grand. What's a
Yeah,
Koenigsegg going for? Like, just stop the cap. Like,
yeah.
it's the
I think the cheapest exotic car is in that area, right? Like a used 2015 Huracan.
so like you could get it for like very low 200 to very high 19. An R8 is like
Yeah,
150.
yeah.
Yeah, you know,
And look at the power difference.
it's insane. Like
Yeah,
the brand new Temerario, which is
yeah.
going to be a 900 horsepower V8 with its hybrid system, is going to start at mid 300s probably.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, where Revueltos start MSRP at 6,
It's too
and
much. Yeah,
it's too much.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love the Revuelto, I do, but that's a lot of money. And then now that they're coming in, everybody with the ADMs and stuff like that, you got what is it? Just last month we were seeing people ask like very high 900s for Revueltos, and then the other day I went ahead and saw one orange one that's for sale, and I think we were asking for like 800. So they're kind of dropping a little bit. Um, if I were somebody, just wait for yours to arrive. Do not
Yeah.
pay 200 grand over on ADM for one. That's
Or,
that's dumb.
or just use that money and go buy an SV.
Or an SVJ. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you know
I
what?
mean,
No.
it's going to
Buy
hold power
yourself an
better.
LP buy yourself an LP 640.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
There you go. Call it a day.
Yep.
Just buy
Is
yourself an
it,
LP 640.
I think it's more respected, to be honest, to this day. Don't get me wrong. New Lamborghinis, they look great, but I just truly don't think it's going to take so long for them to have that same stature. It's going to take
Aventador took
forever.
a while.
It
Aventador
did.
took the entirety of its lifetime to finally get to that point where
Mhm.
now regular Aventadors are starting to go ahead and creep back up a little bit, where
Yep.
they're like, you can buy one at like mid 200s, higher 200s is what regular Aventadors are going for. SVs climbed, came down, and
350, I think
they're
I've
like
seen SVs for.
exactly. SVJs have held to
I
an
mean,
extent, but they still dropped. Ultimates
that's
are
a whole
probably
that's a cult following. I strongly hold by that.
yeah.
Everybody who buys an SVJ has a ton of money, so I gotta
Hmm.
respect him for that. But
Yeah,
two, that price on that car to this day, I don't understand it. I just can't fathom spending that much money
it's a lot
on
of
that
money.
car. It's too
Yeah,
much. It's too much. I respect it. I love them. I've gotten to drive a lot of Aventadors. I've never driven an SVJ, but I've driven an SV.
I've
A
driven in
little
an
different.
SVJ.
Yeah, Cody took you in one, right?
Yes, oh my God, that was an incredible experience. And of course,
That's
Cody's amazing, and he's a damn good driver too. And
yeah, good on him because I feel like
yeah,
everybody needs to experience that single clutch trans. That is a wild, wild ride.
dude,
It's a workout.
it is a workout. But you know what, dude, it wasn't as bad as people made it seem. And
No, it's
that's the
not.
other
Yeah.
thing that I want to tell people. Like, I just went in an LP 640 earlier this summer, which is my all time dream car.
Hmm.
Right, LP 640 is my goat. That and an SLR McLaren.
I've heard
Like,
you talk about it a few times.
that's the
Yeah.
jam, dude. I
Yeah.
win the lottery tomorrow. Those are the first two cars that I'm buying, straight up, bro. And me and Jack Ultramotive went out in his LP 640 a couple months back, and that single clutch,
It's
if
good.
you know how to drive it,
Hmm.
it's not horrid, dude. You just
No.
have to go ahead and lift off throttle and then grab a gear.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when you're going at pace, that's different and whatnot, but like, it actually shifts relatively quickly at pace. The street driving is what actually becomes a little bit of an issue and whatnot. But again, if you
Yeah.
know how to drive it, Cody knows how to drive an SVJ, Jack knows how to drive an LP 640. And again, I meant to say shout out to Tyler. That's his car, and that was very
Yeah.
kind of him to allow me and Cody to do that. But an
See,
SVJ is interesting.
yeah. It's a great car. I just the money doesn't make sense to me for what it
Mhm.
is. Like I'd rather have an LP. I'd rather have a Diablo, to be honest. Um, for the money, right? But
Yeah,
again, the Aventador is still one of the most fun you can have in a car.
I agree. I think that you and I, being the age that we are, we grew up with Murcielago and Diablo
Yeah.
and whatnot. I think that the peeps a decade younger than me, like those 25, 26-year-olds, they view Aventador in the same way that you and I view LP 640s and Murcielagos as a whole and Diablos. So
Hmm.
like the older Gen Z kids probably, and that's 100% okay, because the people that are older than you and I are the ones
Yeah.
that view Diablo and Countach better than Murcielago. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And
Yeah.
then the
No, it's
60
true.
year olds view Miras as all and it's just that I'm happy that because of this, Lamborghini holds a special place in every single generation's heart because
100%.
of what car they grew up with.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's in his 60s or in her 60s, you probably are an enormous Mura geek. If
Oh,
you're
for
in your
sure.
mid 40s or something like that, Puntosh is your go-to unless you're Alex Gudlow.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's you and I who are in our mid to early 30s that view Diablo and Murcielago probably like hand in hand.
Was it Need for Speed Underground 2? The cover of it was a yellow Murcielago.
Yes, it was, my friend. It sure freaking was.
That's why. That I remember
Mm-hmm.
seeing that car in that game, and I'm like, that's the coolest car ever made. There you go.
I couldn't agree with you more. Can I make a suggestion to you? And I want to make a suggestion to anybody else that's listening. I may have mentioned this in the past, but my good buddy Lorenzo Giacomini, who works over at ECME up in San Francisco, he does their marketing for them, and he also manages the wrap shop that they work with and whatnot. But the other cool job that he has is he does the videos for ECME's YouTube channel. It used to be Derek Tam-Scott, who has since left and started his own dealership, which is super dope. And he's still doing, obviously, the Carmudgeon podcast with Jason Camisa. But my buddy Lorenzo took over the videos, and it's called now they've rebranded them to ECME Drives. And so a couple of months back, a video released on their YouTube channel, and it's Lorenzo driving Busta Rhymes' old LP, pre LP six speed Murcielago,
Okay, very
and
smooth. That's
it's extremely cool, and I think it's still for sale on ECME's site right now. So if anybody's got the cash, go check
yeah.
it out because it's exceptional. But the cool thing that he and the media team that made the video was they basically, it was like Lorenzo chilling at his house and decided to go ahead and pop in Need for Speed 2. and then he selects the Murcielago, and then it takes him into him driving the Murcielago that he's supposed to be driving for the video. It's
That
one of
is
the more
sick.
creative videos I've seen in a very long time. And again, I
I
hope
love
my
that.
boy Lorenzo listens to this. He's amazing. I love him, and it's an incredible video. Anybody should watch it. I think it's only got like 30 or 40,000 views. It needs a lot more. It's
Dude, I'm
so
gonna check it
good.
out now. That sounds sick. Yeah,
Please, I will send it to you after we're done with the podcast tonight, so that way you can check it out. It's sick.
dude, I mean, that's, video games like that changed everything, right? The reason
Uh-huh.
why I shoot the way I shoot is because of a video game, it's because of Need for Speed Underground 2.
Would you say that that was one of your biggest, not motivating factors, but what was that your biggest inspirations was the video games, or where do you think, where did that come from in particular for the supercar section of it?
I think it might have honestly been video games because
Yeah.
I grew up in a really, really crappy area. I grew up with no money, right? Like no one around me had nice cars. So seeing those cars, I only got to see them in video games. And I remember like as a kid, you don't know if they're real or not.
Yeah.
When we're little kids, like, YouTube was a thing, but not like it is now.
Mhm.
And so, you see these like cars, I'm like, these are so cool. I remember just being obsessed with them, right? Having posters and going to the book fair. And I'm like, I want that Lamborghini poster so bad, right? Still looking for it. So, I'm just trying to make my own now. So, I got obsessed with those, but I also got obsessed with the way it looked in the game too, right? Like you have them, wide body kits on them, and you just see like crazy paint jobs, and that stuff just infatuated me as a kid. So I think just from that day, something just stuck, and I just wanted to be around these cars. I wanted to figure out a way how to do it because a kid who grew up in Apache Junction, Arizona, probably not likely to be able to go and drive, $1 million car, right?
Right.
But it's been, like I said, luck. Everything's luck. So, you know, shooting the cars the way they do, I want them to look like a video game. I
Mhm.
want it to look like a fantasy. The brighter the color, the crazier the car is, the more ridiculous stuff you do to it to make it look better or drive faster, the more I like it. It's like a
I hear you.
disease.
I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, shout out to AJ. Shout out to Apache Junction. Apache Junction is most definitely in the building. Before I moved over here to the west side, I was over in Mesa, like the east side of Mesa, right off the 202, basically bordering Queen Creek and bordering that other side of Gilbert. So like Apache Junction was like 15 minutes from my house when
Mhm.
just a couple of years ago when I was over there. And so every once in a while I had to go over to AJ. It's gotten better, but
It
you know
has.
what?
It's
It
got a lot
has.
better.
It has, and whatnot. It helps that Gold Canyon is probably like 20 minutes down the road and whatnot.
Hmm.
But I'll say this because we usually go ahead and we shout out Scottsdale and we shout out some of the other, townships here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. AJ gets zero
It's
love. So I will
man,
give it all the
yeah,
lwe right now. Shout out to Apache Junction.
yeah. It needs it, dude. It does need it. Like, I think it's funny is like, growing up in a town like that, when we moved there as I was a kid, I think I was, I don't know, 5 or 6 when I moved, and you don't realize like most cities that are developed don't just have like miles of dirt, right? They don't have,
Yep.
like these little odd looking shanty shacks like all over, right? That's not a normal thing, but we grew up out there like, oh, this is normal. And then, my first trip to Scottsdale, I was blown away.
Right.
I was like, why is there every car I've ever dreamed of out here? Why is there giant buildings? I was like, it's just such a crazy life change. It truly blew my mind. I'm like, oh, I think I want to maybe figure that part out. Yeah,
Exactly.
I like these guys.
For sure. And real quick, Apache Junction, Turnstile is over there, which is a really, really fun little shop. Shout out to my
Yeah.
boy Colin Wilcoxon, who's been on the podcast before. He's their marketing director and all that good stuff. They focus on JDM and Euro and
Hmm.
stuff like that. They're killing it, and they
Yeah.
they 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 do a fantastic little job. And they're a small shop, but I think they're gaining more and more steam, and so they're right in the middle of the thick of it there in
Yeah.
AJ and whatnot. So they deserve some love,
They
man.
look busy, by the way.
They're doing the damn thing, bro.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
every once in a while, I'll look and they're down in Tucson drifting over at Muzzleman, and I'm like, okay, cool, bro. Like, what's
Yeah.
up? That's
Yep.
that's so dope. Um, I I love the fact that your inspiration was the video games because when I was growing up, one of the biggest inspirations for me was Forza, and it was Need for Speed. In particular, Need for Speed Underground was one of my biggest ones because when I was you know the supercar thing came, but the first thing that came was like the Fast and the Furious, right? So
Hmm.
'01 comes out. It's like, oh, okay, cool. This is my jam. And
Hmm.
then like a year later, Need for Speed Underground comes out. You know, the first car that you get in Need for Speed Underground is, I think, an RSX. You know, and then you go ahead and start to go ahead and get your own cars and all that good stuff and whatnot. And like the inspiration was so real. And oh, and of course, Gone in 60 Seconds, another
Yeah,
heavy inspiration. It's so crazy how movies and games really can affect your psyche and make you the car enthusiast that you actually end up becoming a decade later. Like, I'm 34. I love all kinds of cars, right? Like, my love for cars is for the most part all over the place.
yeah,
There are very few cars that I would go ahead and say aren't really my thing. I'll tell you this right now. I don't really like Elon Musk, but if somebody gave me a free Model 3, I would
sure,
happily take it.
yeah,
Like just because even with panel gaps and all, but like,
yeah,
it's not a horrid looking car. You know,
no.
the only thing that I might go ahead and be willing to run off a freaking bridge is a Pontiac Aztec, bro.
I mean, and the only reason why Aztecs even have any street cred right now is because of Breaking Bad. So
Sure, that
yeah,
and because every SUV out there that's like the that's the coupe style got it because the Pontiac Aztec walked so everyone else could run basically.
yeah, they crawled. I think they barely walked. Yeah, that
They
was a
they
very
they
odd
were they
choice.
were pushed across the finish line, Josh. Let me tell you right now. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, Pontiac made a lot of odd choices. I mean, the Pontiac Sky was a good idea to compete against the 86, and it just fell on its face.
sure,
Pontiac is an interesting little company.
it
Yeah,
is.
it's
I think it was weird because like, of course, if you look from '94 to 2002, like anybody will say, and I think most people will agree with this, the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am was a way better looking than the Chevy Camaro Catfish.
dude,
And on
way
top of that,
better.
it was also faster
Yeah,
by a little bit. It
yeah,
always had a little bit more of a bump in power. And then when they got rid of the Trans Am in '02, 2 years later is when we got the first year of the GTO when they brought it back.
mm-hmm,
I like the GTO.
mm-hmm.
I
Me
do. I had
too.
a buddy of mine when I used to live in Tucson. He had an '04, put 20s on it. He just had the 4-speed automatic, wasn't anything too crazy. But he switched out the single exit exhaust for a dual exhaust setup, setting off car alarms left and right,
Yeah,
bro. Making like just under like because of his exhaust, I think he was making a little bit more than 350 horsepower. That's all
yeah.
you needed back then, bro.
That's all you need. Yep,
You know, and then '05 and '06 GTOs, those are the ones to go with because then you get the LS2.
yep,
And like
yep.
now we're talking, it's like 400 horsepower in '05.
Yeah,
That's a lot of power, bro.
and LS is just bulletproof,
LS the
figuratively
world.
and literally. I
Yeah.
agree. I 100% agree. But like you said, I think I'm a car fan, right? Just in general, I love all cars. My poor fiance has to watch me like point at cars while we're in a car. She's like, okay, cool. And I'm like, did you see that? Like I give a weird spec or a weird year. She's like, okay, that's cool. I feel like a kid, right? And
For
even
sure.
in my office, I have like, I have an F1 car sitting here and I have a bunch of just cars. There's cars literally everywhere. I have old BMWs here. I have
Yep.
what I think is the best car ever made, but the Lego version of it, the Yesko.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
I think it's the greatest car in the world and the greatest car the world's ever seen. Again, I might be a little biased. I think Mr. Koenigsegg is an absolute genius.
Right.
But yeah, just cars in general. It doesn't ever stop. I wake up in the morning. I look at cars. I'm working. I'm watching car stuff right here. I have another monitor behind my laptop. It's just nonstop, and I don't think I'll ever get tired of it.
Me either, dude. Uh, I never suppressed it because it was always a thing, especially from when I was like 11, 12 years old and whatnot. But ever since I started doing the podcast back in 2021, the only reason why it took me a while to do this is because I was doing another podcast prior, not having to do with cars, but the love for cars was always there. And self admitted, I don't know if I've ever said this before, but it's one thing to go ahead and do a podcast on one subject. It's another thing to go ahead and do a podcast on another subject that you love, but you're not an expert in. I can't stress enough. I'm not an expert in cars whatsoever. I'm definitely not a wrench. Um, there's things that I don't know, like these brand new hypers that people know about and stuff like that. Like I know some stuff. I don't know everything. I get schooled by the photographers all the time. And like I was at the Velocity Invitational the other day and I got, I was getting schooled
Jealous, by
left
the
and
way.
right.
I'm
Oh,
incredibly jealous.
bro, thank you. Like let me tell you something. Th-
Not just the
I,
cars, the people that
the
you also
people
met
were
too.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Met a few individuals who I would very much like to meet one day.
that was a blessing in and of itself. Let me tell you right now. Getting I took a selfie with Roman Grosjean, the Phoenix.
So
That dude
sick,
is
dude.
such a legend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad to see him be appreciated now after the whole fact and whatnot, because it's just one of those things where like the dude came out of something that most people wouldn't have. And it's like, it's not the fact that he's invincible, it's the fact that he came out and his family got to see him for a little bit longer, and
Yep.
that's cool. And then chatting with Jensen Button for 5 minutes on this
Dude,
podcast will go down as one of the all-time highlights.
Jensen's a gangster, dude. That
Dude,
guy's
he's
so
such a
cool.
gangster,
Yeah. Yeah.
such a gangster. Like he's just,
He's
and
smooth, dude. He's just so
he's
smooth with
so
everything.
he really is, dude. He really is. And he just gets it. And he's clearly very media trained because as soon as we started the podcast, I was like,
You see it
oh,
click. Yep.
it just clicked. And then I think that we have a really special connection with Jensen because Radford is here,
Mm-hmm.
who is in charge of the Radford Type 62. And we have one in Chandler and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And so he's been out here. He's tested that car at Radford. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like he kind of has it. Us as Arizonans is like we have this special connection a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with this amazing guy who just happens to be the 2009 Formula One world champion. Like
Yep.
that's so cool to me. Like that,
Yeah.
it was super rad. But I was saying, like I was at the Velocity Invitational, and there were so many people there that left and right that I was just like getting schooled by, that I don't mind, because I view this still to this day, even though we're 3 years in the game now, right, Josh? Like I like learning something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's still nurturing to me. It's still I will never be that guy that pretends to know everything, because I'm not.
Well, I think you know significantly more than the average by far. Like
I try.
so much more than the average. The average car guy just knows V8, V6, manual automatic, right? That's probably the baseline.
Yeah, there's some numbers here and there, horsepower numbers,
Well, you're
acceleration
naming
numbers.
off chassis models,
Yeah,
which are already, if you name off a chassis number, that's a whole nother level ahead of the average.
right.
But again, I think no one knows everything. You can't, right? Like there are some people out there who are incredibly intelligent and just know so much, even more than I do, which it
100%.
does blow my mind. But
Gianpaolo Scorzo from Carissimo is one of the most brilliant dudes I've ever met in my entire life. Shout out to GP.
yep,
Yes.
you can name off like 35, 40 years of cars, and he goes, I know the history, I know how it's made, I know what it is, I know all the variations, and I know these weird little in between years that things got kind of weird. I'm like, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Some people are truly gifted. Um, I unfortunately I don't think I have that gift. I think the only gift I have is a Photoshop app. That's about it. So,
Well,
but
you know
no,
what?
you are very, very, very ahead of the curve. I'd say you are by far one of the more intelligent audio enthusiasts. I think you don't know that because you're so busy interviewing people where you don't realize actually how much stuff you say is you're 100% spot on. Like you know it and you say it, and I respect that.
Well, thank you, dude. That actually means so much. And coming from someone like you, like it does, those types of things matter to me, because I never want to go ahead and come across as someone who's a poser ever. I'm an enthusiast. I do this for a reason, because I love it and adore it. And I, I try to learn as much as I can, but then also recognize there's still a lot more to learn. That,
Every day's a
that
school day, man.
every
Every day's a
day,
school
every day
day.
is a school day, and every podcast is a school day. True. On top of that, which me as someone who's giving the platform to people to be able to tell their story, I find that amusing in the best way possible. And you bring up the fact that all you do is mess around with a Photoshop app. Dude, do you know how hard it is to go ahead and make something look good? Which actually brings me to another question I'm going to ask you in a second. But like, learning Photoshop, especially the advances that it has made over the last like several years,
Yeah.
every single time there's a massive update, it's like you're learning how to edit a photo, right?
It kind of depends, right? I've been doing it since CS3, where you actually had to buy it. You couldn't just pay a monthly fee to Adobe. That wasn't a thing.
Okay.
And the only reason I had Photoshop is because my junior high had it, and so
Okay.
I was like, dude, this is cool. I saw my photo teacher clone stamp something out. He's like, you can get rid of something. I'm like, whoa, that's sick. And I was like, I like that. So from there on, I'm like, well, this is what I do now. And I just started getting good at Photoshop. I would do like fake magazine covers for like people, or,
Oh,
just
that's
like a bunch
cool.
of like random stuff. And, it was just fun to play with. Like you have a whole like universe of things you can do in Photoshop. And I'm like, I have to learn all of them. But I also, it goes because I couldn't draw as a kid. I sucked at it. But I wanted to. I never could get good. Couldn't paint, couldn't do jewelry. I've always wanted to be like an artist of some sort. I just was bad at everything. My
Yeah.
handwriting is trash. So it's like, what can I do that's artistic enough to fulfill whatever that needs to be fulfilled? And it
Yeah.
turned out it was photos and Photoshop.
Yeah. That's it's amazing. So here's the question that I wanted to ask you, which goes along with your photography. And I like to ask this to my photography friends because um I've been asked in the past, it's like, oh, you've had a lot of photographers on the podcast. Like, was that ever on purpose? No, it wasn't. It wasn't ever. But what I've come to realize is that, and I'm sure you can attest to this, the photographers have so many more different stories to be able to tell than others do. And you guys are so boots on the ground and your ears are to the streets. It's really crazy.
Mhm.
My question to you is, as you were creating the concept that BMW, let's say, puts in front of you, it's like, okay, Josh, here's the idea, here's the marketing gimmick, this is what we want. Where is it that you get your biggest, how do I say this? I guess, where do you feel you get the most life out of it? Is it when you're shooting, or is it when you're making the edit look like what it's supposed to?
It's the edit.
Because it's coming to life, right?
Yep, it's the edit. To the point where like um, the uh, the X5 shoot I did, the 25th anniversary shoot, wasn't done with Flash,
Okay. Oh, wow.
and that's all my stuff is
Interesting.
Flash, and I made it look like it was in Flash.
Was it a night shoot or was it a day shoot?
It was straight up like 2 or 3 p.m. It was bad lighting,
Yeah.
and it was a last minute thing. They needed some extra stuff. They added some stuff to it, like roof rails and a small like tire upgrade, like off road knobby tires.
Right.
And like we have to incorporate this because we need to run ads for all the different like attachments essentially they're going to be selling for the last X5. I was like, okay, I don't have my flash with me. I was in the trip for not that, and they're like, well, make it work. I'm like, all right, okay. So yeah, I mean, like the shoot's fine. Like I like to shoot. It's fun. Like shooting for me is more like it's I like shooting because I get to meet people on a one-to-one basis, right? Like all of the supercar and hypercar clients I get to shoot,
Yeah.
they're interesting to talk to while I shoot, but it's the edit. Like I like to be in my office. I like to be watching something. I like to focus on this and just get lost in the edit. And then once I'm done, save the file and then go look at the file the next morning. I'm like, cool, that's pretty sick. Like I created that, right?
Right.
So it's 100% the edit. It will always be the edit for me. And I think the edit is the biggest difference between me and an actual photographer. I don't really believe I'm a real photographer. I can shoot the photo,
Right.
but I can actually have anybody shoot these photos and I can make them look like this.
I see. Now it does take a talent still to be able to go ahead and take the photos, because I think I think it's fair to say that a lot of some of our friends in the space, they do have that real eye for detail from when they actually shoot, and then they have the editing skills. But I think that a lot of times the editing is clearly just as important as the actual angles of what you're looking for in order to go ahead
Yeah.
and make something look beautiful, right?
Yeah. If your composition is good, if you have basic understanding of composition, even if you want to get super basic and just stick everything into a rule of thirds, right?
Mhm.
That's great. Uh, but for me, it's always been the editing. There is a lot of photographers out there. Some of the people who I've absolutely to this day just can't fathom how good they are. There's a photographer on Instagram named Frederick Schlosinger. He's to me the pinnacle. Like he's like the deity of photography.
Wow.
He's the person who doesn't only just have the composition down, but also has the editing down. Mind you, he does have a pretty big team to work with him, and hopefully one day I will too. But this guy is just on another level. I look at his stuff and I sometimes I get a little depressed because you realize how some people have, it seems like they have it all, right? You
Right.
have the composition, you have the color grading, you have the editing down, and then you have these weird, like, little situational things that you can make it, you can tell it's their work by looking at it without even seeing a name on Instagram.
Sure.
And so that's, some people are just like that, right? Some people just
Yeah.
have it like that. But even the most basic photographers out there who ask me questions, like learn composition,
Right.
learn how to frame something, right? Learn how to put two objects, one in front, one behind, or on the side. How to make this look a little bit more tasteful, and then you can be off to the races with just that.
I like that. It's funny that you say that, sometimes you can go ahead and once you start to go ahead and figure out somebody's style, you can go ahead and look at their photo and know who it is before you even look at the Instagram handle. I've got a
Mhm.
couple of friends of mine who I've come to be able to go ahead and notice that about them. And it's actually I feel like it's a really cool compliment to them because it's like their style is so unique to your own set of eyes. It's like, I know exactly who shot that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's so funny. Um, who are some, because you talked about Frederick Schlosinger. There's this really great photographer that's over in I think he's based in Dubai or Abu Dhabi right now. It's he's the guy that shot the Carrera GT with the camels. What's homeboy's name?
Is
Steven.
what's his name? I'm so see that's one of my I'm bad with names. What is his name?
Let's see if
I
I
know
can look him.
yeah, I know the photo you're talking about.
It was
Um,
sick, dude. I want to say it was Steven. Is it Steven Bauer?
that sounds kind of familiar.
Yes, it is. Let me see if I can go ahead and find it. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on. That's him.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. It's a little bit blurred on the screen.
No, you're good.
That man is
Yeah.
just a a talented as hell individual.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Do I one of my goals is to shoot in Dubai for sure. Like I
Mhm.
have to go, right? I have to go shoot some wild stuff out there. I've never pushed that connection, and I think if I did push it, I could go.
Right.
Um, I've never been to the Middle East, so I wouldn't be mad about that. It'd be kind of sick, right? The
For
sand dunes
sure.
and just the whole vibe of it. I
What would
want
you
the
what do you think would be your dream shoot if you were out there?
I think honestly, I think a hype like a Koenigsegg. I think if I could
Yeah.
get a Koenigsegg somehow, if I could, have it almost in the dunes, in the sand where
Mhm.
it's obviously not supposed to be, that's the dream. I think that would be the coolest thing I could ever do. And I would do everything, right? I would do the whole outfit, fire outfit. I love it. I have to do it.
Yeah,
It's also functional, protect you from sand.
for sure.
I want the whole experience. I want the hypercar experience. I want to see the 1% of the world. I want to know what that looks like. Because
Right.
we are a little spoiled here in Arizona, seeing Scottsdale being one of the wealthiest cities in the United States,
100%.
and
And not to
me.
mention only being 5 hours from LA.
Oh yeah, and the
Yeah,
other wealthiest place, in the United
exactly.
States. So we are very spoiled over this little niche that we get to go and see basically whatever car we want.
Mhm.
So I think, that's one thing, but then seeing the true 1% of the world, which is there, I want to
Right.
see stuff I've never seen or a one of one hypercar or something wild. But I think any Koenigsegg would do. I am a massive Koenigsegg fan. Koenigsegg, sand dunes, some camels, dude, it's gonna be money all day long.
It'd be lit for sure.
Oh yeah.
We brought up Koenigsegg a couple of times this evening, and I can't help but ask because I haven't watched the video yet. But did you see Christian and Mate and Mr. Hennessy over at Sonoma Raceway where they went ahead and I think they had the F5,
Yep.
the Navera, and was it Yesco
It was
or was it?
No, I believe it was a Yes Go. I
It was a
actually
yes go,
have it.
right?
Yeah, I have it saved right here. I have a monitor, like you can see
Okay.
right here. I have it saved for tomorrow when I'm editing. That's the next video that
That's
pops
the
up.
videos. Okay, now are
Yeah,
you
so
gonna
that's when I
which
started.
are you gonna watch the first the car video first and then watch their interview together, or you can watch
So
both of them simultaneously?
I'm gonna watch the car one next. I watched the interview already.
Oh, okay. How was it?
Yeah.
I'm curious to
Um,
get
it,
your thoughts
it,
on it.
it was great. For how young the new CEO of Bugatti Rimac is,
Yeah,
dude.
Mate
He's
Rimitz,
yeah, he's dialed in. He's a
dude,
very
100.
very
percent
smart guy, and he's a car person first. And he has a lot of really smart people working for him, and I love that combination. I
Yep.
mean,
There's a reason why he became the CEO of Bugatti. There's a
yeah,
reason for that.
he had what? How is he? 25, 24? He's young.
He might be my age. He might be like mid 30s, which is
I
still
th-
pretty young, especially for that.
I
I'll try
thought
and
he.
look it up, but I'll let you go ahead and say what you were saying.
Yeah, I think he's completely just. He's one of us, right? He's
Right.
one of us with a lot more money, and I like that because that means
36.
he.
He's
Oh, he's 36.
36. Yeah.
Okay, so he's not
But I
quite as young
think
as I thought,
no, but I think when he started Rimat, he was definitely in his late 20s,
which is crazy.
which is wild.
Because I feel like I'm an idiot. I'm 30, so I can't imagine being that young, doing something that big.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's just one of us. He's a car person first. He's a guy who wants to go fast and wants to look good doing it, and we need that to exist still, right?
I agree.
And you have Mr. Koenigsegg is, I think, an actual genius.
Hmm.
To go, we're gonna get rid of a camshaft. And they go, okay, how's the car going to work then? He goes, pneumatic. And they're like, all right, how's that possible? And he's like, I think this is how it works. We have engineers smarter than me. They're going to design it and we're going to make it work. So just to have wild ideas like that, to be that smart and that dialed in,
Yeah.
to push technology and to push what is actually possible,
Hmm.
even though I probably will never be able to afford any of these cars, I
But
at
the
least
fact
get
that
to
it's out
see,
there.
but it exists exactly. And
Right.
that's what makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
There's that I'll be able to see one for sure one day, and that's what matters, right? I just want
Yeah.
to see it. I just want to see it and experience it.
Agreed. And then on top of that, then you get John. And
Yeah.
he is I remember having a conversation with Johnny Lieberman once, and I said, John Hennessy is the modern day Carroll Shelby.
Yep.
And then he corrected me and he said, yeah, but John actually sells cars. And I
That's
was like,
funny.
and I was
Dang.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's so true. And I think that we live in a really weird timeline where people still think that Hennessy's sketch. And I'm like, I don't know what it is about them that people feel that way. I guess,
What other manufacturer? Well, what other automotive aftermarket company puts a warranty on their stuff?
exactly my point. And dude, they build everything.
Yeah.
They build Camaros, they built Corvettes, they built Vipers, they built Mustangs, they built Ford GTs,
They
obviously.
build TRXs. I
They
mean,
built
everything.
TRXs and Raptors for forever and a day. They built 1,000 horsepower Trackhawks and 1,000 horsepower Durangos and whatnot. They built V series Cadillacs
Yep.
and stuff like that. They do everything. And then they go from Venom GT, which was based on a Lotus,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they dropped a massive 7-liter GM base V8
Mm-hmm.
and strapped twin turbos that were bigger than you and I,
Yeah.
and then create the Venom F5, which I prefer that the Venom GT as an experience, even though I've never driven in
Yeah.
either of them. But you cannot deny how good looking the Venom F5 is.
Dude, it looks so good.
It looks so good.
It looks so good. Honestly, it looks like a. This sounds disrespectful. And I hope no one takes it because I do like both of these cars, but it makes the C8 look like that looks like the Wish app version of the F5.
Sure, to an extent. No, to respect, and I love the C8.
I do
I'm one of
too.
the,
I
I love
I
it.
love them, but
ZR1's
the
going to be
F5 is
amazing. I love Z06, but like
yep.
the F5 is crazy cool.
It's such a pretty car. I think even non-car people go, dang, that's a really good looking car. And that's the biggest thing, right? If you can get a person who doesn't care about cars go, what is that? Or they ask
Yeah,
a question, you won,
exactly. And the fact that John thought to himself, I want to do that, because he could have easily just kept on building,
Yeah.
Corvettes that are faster and blah, 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 and Camaros and Mustangs
To
and
make your own
Challengers
car.
twice.
E- Elon Musk said the biggest difficulty in making a car brand is the production line, right? Is
Right.
getting everything to work together to get a car out. He goes, that's the most difficult process. It's not the engineers anymore.
Hmm?
We have the technology. It's not the computers. We have all the power. It's the assembly line. If you
Yep.
can't get your assembly line done correctly, you're going to have body gaps. You're going to have,
Hmm.
sealing issues. You're going to have, faulty motors or bad wiring.
Yep.
And if you can do that twice while still managing a whole nother side company of you modifying thousands and thousands of cars, you're doing good.
I
But
couldn't
also
agree
he
with you
gets a
more.
lot of problems. You get like people on the internet are weird nowadays because they get videos that pop up. It's like 1500 horsepower all wheel drive TRX, right? Okay, that's a wild car. That's a car that a shop built.
Yeah.
Shop's probably great. Shop's probably really really intelligent, knows what they're doing, but they're not putting a warranty on that car.
Right.
And so a lot of people give Hennessy some flack, I've noticed, because they're not building the fastest cars in the world. They're not building the most outrageous cars in the world, but they're building really, really fast cars with a really, really solid safety net behind it.
Exactly. And I think, and it with, I mean, 3-year warranty
It's a
is
wild thing.
really, really a lot more than people realize. And, you mentioned like building the assembly line and things of that nature. There's obviously a difference between making, I think, a total of like, he might be making less than 100 F5s, maybe than less than 50, to be quite honest. Like,
Yeah.
there's not going to be that many. Whereas, again, once more, I bring up Elon, not a fan of him at all, but like, they're putting out thousands upon thousands of Teslas out there's, Model X's, Model S's,
Yeah.
Model Y's, Model
Tens
3s,
and tens of
Cybertrucks,
thousands. Yeah.
and he did the thing. It took him 10 plus years to do it, but he did him and his company did the thing. And but the thing about John is John is building a car based on the fact that he made cars go faster for the last 30 years and then telling people, I'm going to charge you 1.4, 1.5 mil.
Yeah.
Like, to have the audacity, because
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, to have the audacity to do that and then be able to deliver,
Oh, and sell them out
that's
immediately.
that's what's so impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Sold out all of them before they were even released.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
You must
now
have
he's, yeah.
a good following.
Exactly. Oh, and by the way, they're being delivered now. Like,
Mhm.
I'm seeing videos of F5s arrive that him and his team show up to the client's house. They're unloading the F5 and things of that nature. And I know, like, a few months ago, a video went viral because an F5 blew its engine, and I don't think that people realize that the idiot was revving it cold. It's like,
That's what
oh,
happens. Yeah.
that's what happens when a 1500 horsepower V8 gets revved when it's cold. That's exactly what happens,
Yep.
and whatnot.
It's not a Honda.
It's not a Honda, and you know, I can't wait to watch that interview because I remember having watched the first one that they did about a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
where it was Mate and it was John and it was Christian and Gordon,
Hmm. Oh
Gordon
yeah.
Murray.
He was kind of
Um,
quiet, wasn't he?
but he was so brilliant.
Yeah,
Like,
he's great.
he's like the godfather to them. Like, all these guys are brilliant, and then you got Gordon, and you're like,
Yeah.
damn. And then
Yeah.
what the crazy thing was, every one of them still thinks of the Mazda Miata is the best sports car on the planet, and I'm just like, what in the world?
Dude, I can't be mad. I do like the Miata. It's a driver's
No, I
car,
do
right?
too. It
I like
is.
small nimble cars, and
Yeah,
I don't think he's wrong, right? It's the truest definition of a car,
yeah.
right? You don't
There,
need all the power, you don't need all the electronics. You just need four wheels, a little bit of power, and good
sure,
steering, and you have a good car.
exactly. I agree with you, but I also told Anthony Cataldo, shout out to AMCJ Photos.
He's
That's my
awesome.
boy.
Yeah.
He's amazing, incredibly talented, really a visionary when it comes to his photography and all that
Yeah,
good
I
stuff.
really like his work.
His work is incredible. But I flat out told Anthony, I said, Anthony, I appreciate the fact that you love a stock Miata, but if I had a Miata, I'm doing the flying Miata kit ASAP. Like, I
Yeah.
am doing the LS swap because it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, that is a modern day Shelby Cobra, and I will buy it immediately.
So that I actually have that comes to something a little bit. So I have an FRS in my garage right now.
Hmm?
It's on the second motor. It's probably on its way out soon too. There is a company in Arizona that does LS swaps for them,
Okay.
and I do think like a slightly detuned, like, even like LS3.
400
The
horsepower is ace in that car.
It's yeah, and everyone freaks out like, oh, it's a really heavy motor.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. The FA20 is heavier, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken, than the LS3.
The LS3 is
With half
so
the
much
cylinders, it's
lighter
heavier.
than the Coyote V8. It's
Hmm.
so much lighter than the Hemis.
Yep.
Um, I think that compared to the two-cylinder that comes in the Miata, I think the weight difference may have been that the LS3 weighs maybe 100 to 150 pounds more,
And I also
which
think it
is
sits a
not
little farther away from the firewall, making the balance a
that,
little weird.
and then additionally, the power that it makes.
Oh
So
yeah.
you might be looking at like in total, maybe like instead of a Miata being 2,200 pounds, let's say it's 24 to 2,500, but now
Okay.
you're going ahead and making triple the horsepower.
Yeah.
So it like the balance ends up being insane.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's like, damn.
People are very like I keep saying this, but people are very, very crazy about numbers, but don't
Hmm.
actually know what it feels like. You know,
Hmm.
they nowadays we see a hyper or supercar come out, it's 600 horsepower. I was like, that's slow. I'm like, that's not slow.
It's not slow.
And then they'll see like they'll see like my Super, for example, is 33, 3,400 pounds. They're like, oh,
Hmm.
that's kind of heavy. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I will say the new M5 is heavy. That's
Extremely.
valid. Yeah, that's valid. But again, when you have a 770 horsepower car, the weight is kind of, null and void, right?
Sure.
The electric Hummer is, if I'm not mistaken, it is what, almost nine
Nine
thousand
nine
pounds.
thousand pounds. There are some bridges over New York that it cannot go over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that is a fast SUV.
Oh, it's got no brakes though. But yeah, it's so
Yeah,
fast.
it's so fast. So again, weight. People always figure about weight. I'm like, if you put a little power in it, well,
Hmm.
brakes are also important, but to most of us, that comes second. Um,
It's true.
it's a lot of power,
It's a
and
lot.
in a car that doesn't weigh very much, it's going to be
Mhm.
so fun. And I think that's really what it is about.
It's so funny you say that because, like, again, going back to the LP640 experience that I had back earlier in May,
Yeah.
what I was telling what my best friend when I did the experience, I was like, dude, that car is a 2009, right?
Yeah.
And so an LP640 is making 630 horsepower, right around there, all-wheel drive. And Mercies aren't light. They're
No.
lighter than Aventadors, but they're not that light. They're like 3,600 pounds, 3,700 pounds. It's not horrid. What was crazy to me is that car is 15 years old, right, Josh? And he gunned it.
Mhm.
Yeah, 630 horsepower is still very fast this day.
Yes, it is.
100%.
Horsepower doesn't lie.
Horsepower does not lie. Horsepower doesn't get old. Like if it's
No.
600 horsepower, then it's still going to be 600 horsepower now. And you're like, holy crap.
Even more impressive, those small little wheels they put on it from the factory,
Hmm.
which
Oh,
shocks
dude,
me.
Murcielagos are so much more like the ride was so much more comfortable than an SVJ.
It's because they don't have the
Like,
giant, giant wheels.
yeah, dude, the sidewall was like actually like pretty good.
Yeah.
And dude, I can't stress enough how low that car was because like he parked it next to his Hennessy Camaro, and that looked
Monster
like a
truck.
Super Duty next to us, dude.
Yeah.
It was insane. There was a Super Duty that passed us by on the freeway, and I was like, "Is that a skyscraper driving by
Yeah.
us?" Like it was
You can see
wild.
the step side, and that's it. Yeah.
Literally, that's all it was. But
I've
like,
been in some few little cars like that. I'm like, that the Fast and the Furious thing. I'm like, could I go underneath this?
dude,
Could
I've
I
thought about it.
could could
Yeah,
I could I potentially, probably not, but I could try it one day,
you could
hopefully.
you could try. Whether or not we'll succeed is a whole different story. Like
That's
Derek
why
and
you need
I.
Miatas. Yeah, that's why you need Miatas.
Exactly. So, we brought up the fact that we wanted to go ahead and go for a rip in the Supra and do the podcast, which is what Derek and I did with the 720
Yeah, it was
back
sick.
last year. Oh, dude, it was amazing. To
720
this
is
day,
scary, dude. It's a
720s are
fast.
so
It's so
freaking
fast.
good.
It's so fast.
You sh- you talk about a Yesco and like that's the all-time dream car. You don't need a Yesco,
No, you don't
dude.
need it.
You don't need a 720.
No,
You want a 720. Like I
no.
actually so I remember doing the pod, and in the podcast I say I need one of these. And
Mhm.
Derek's like, yeah, but you'd want a 765. And I'm like, I look at a like I looked at him dead in his face and I was like, no one needs a 765 LT.
No,
No one.
no, I have a buddy with one, and that is too much. I do agree. I actually think that car is a little too much, unless you're an actual driver. I mean, like
Sure.
if you do it for like if you do track days often,
If you're
or
Lando Norris or
yeah,
Jensen Button, yeah.
yeah, if you're a race car driver,
Mhm.
probably. But for like the average guy who has some cash in his bank account in Scottsdale, you don't need
You
that
don't
car,
need
dude.
you don't need a 765.
Well, the other thing is, again, people are going, well, it's not even 800 horsepower. Okay, it's also all carbon fiber and it doesn't weigh anything. But also, I don't understand how McLaren was able to get that car to spool so fast.
Oh,
There is
dude.
no hesitation. It You drop it a few gears, you're up, you're gone, you're
Yeah.
gone.
It,
It is
it, it
one of the
definitely
most wild
revs up.
rides.
It revs up really quickly. And you could still feel like there's a little bit of turbo lag. And then it kicks
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, sweet Lord, the torque
Yep.
hits you like nothing else. And like that car gets up to a speed so quick
Mhm.
that you're just like, I'm sorry, what was that number again?
Yeah.
Like it is terrifying.
Oh
It,
yeah.
it- like, and you know what? The way that that car sticks
Yep.
is wild, especially when with it being only rear wheel drive.
It
The
feels
way
like
that
all-wheel drive.
bro,
Yeah.
so much grip.
Yep.
Now, when you're at pace, it starts to get a little sketch because it starts to push,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my sweet Lord, you're like, oh, I need to slow down a little bit because this thing is fast.
It's fast. It's so
Yeah.
fast. It's pretty dialed in terms of like when you accelerate, it does stick. It's not too sketchy.
Yep.
It's a great car. I do like it, but everyone always says, and it's true. You're going to have your issues with McLaren, as
Sure.
they do. I will say the sketchiest car I say in that realm I've ever driven is an F12.
Oh,
Those are terrifying. I've
yeah.
never had the ascent of a car kick out so much
Hmm.
on me before ever. And I wasn't even going that hard on the car.
Yep.
They just get sideways like instantly. And I
Hmm.
don't know if maybe the tires are a little old on it. I don't know what it was. That car actually scared me. And I was like, well, maybe if I drive another one, I was driving like an old man. Well, sure enough, I had to shoot. Some guy's like, hey, I need you to take my F12 out. Go shoot him. All right, cool. I drove that under the speed limit. Old man, people honking at me on the freeway doing 60. You're like, get it? What are you doing, dude? I'm like, this car's scary. That's a scary car. So yeah, I've
That's
had,
hilarious.
shooting
Yeah.
for shoot. Well, that's the other thing is, when I used to do this often, I don't do it so much anymore just because time. But when I would shoot clients' cars and they would trust me enough to give me their keys, which is appreciative, I would drive those cars so slow, like abnormally slow, to the point where like I was driving. This was a long time ago. I was driving a Creta Bespoke car. It was a
Mhm.
Bentley, and they had some stuff done to it. It was pretty quick, but I was on the freeway doing like 70, and some guy cut around me so aggressively and threw a drink at me,
Oh my
like
gosh.
a QT cup. I'm like, for doing middle lane, mind you, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm not being the problem here.
You've got three other lanes.
He either hated me for the car because he
Yeah.
doesn't know who obviously it's like all blacked out car. He couldn't see me,
Right.
but hated the car, wanted to throw it, or 70 was just in his way in the middle lane. So he had to throw something at the car. So I'm like, I drive these cars slow. I don't like to
Right.
drive other people's cars fast. I am not that mad breaking my own cars, but
Sure.
breaking a supercar, you know,
I get it.
be a little different. But
For
yeah, I mean,
sure.
so the F12 is by far the scariest car I've ever driven in my life. The 720 and the 765 are also a very close to me. It's a brutal car. It is all the power, all the speed, all the time, and it's just go when you want.
720s are incredible. I remember when the F12 Berlinetta first came out. I think first year of it was a 20, I think it may have been 2013.
Mhm.
And I remember Motor Trend doing its first article for it. And yeah, the 0 to 60 time, it was pretty good. It was like very low threes,
Mhm.
which I think 812s do like very high twos now, and then 12 cylindry is very high twos, and
Yeah.
it's wild where we are these days. But 10 years ago, very low threes. with a
Very
rear wheel
fast.
drive Super GT. That was like, holy crap. But that wasn't what impressed me the most. I remember seeing the quarter mile being like, I think it was like 11.3 or 11.4,
Mhm.
which is fast. It says fast,
It's almost a
but it's not
10-second
like
car.
it's almost a 10 seconds car. Exactly. But it's not like super impressive, especially when like, F12 Berlinas, I think MSRP wise were like high 300s, very low fours. So, I see the number on the being like 11.3 or 11.4, and I'm like, okay, that's fast, but it's not that fast. But then I looked at the trap speed,
Hmm.
and the trap speed was like, oh,
Yeah.
I see now.
Those cars top end. Yeah, this car can go.
Exactly. Well, that F12's red line at like I think 8,700
Hmm.
RPM or something like that. It was quite it's quite mind-boggling, to be quite honest with you. And you know, for those who don't pay attention to quarter mile numbers, I think I know you do, because obviously you have to have 1,000 horsepower Supra, so you know exactly
It's
what it is
zero horsepower
with
right
zero
now.
horsepower
Yeah.
at the moment. This is
Yeah.
true, but for people who might be a little bit of beginners, when you're running somewhere between an 11 to an 11 and a half second quarter mile, you're somewhere between 120 to about 127, give or
Depends, but yeah,
take,
yeah, yeah.
give or take. So the top end on this at like, again, 11.3 quarter mile, it was over, I think it was almost or over 130 miles an hour,
Yeah, I bet you it was
which
almost
I'm
140. Yeah.
which is nasty. I mean,
Yep.
a 750 now is running extremely low tens
Hmm.
at like closing in at 140 miles an hour,
Yeah.
which is absolutely bananas.
Yeah, it is. It's
It's
nuts.
I don't even know what a ZR1's going to run. ZR1 might actually run under 10.
I think it will. I think it'll
Yeah,
be like a 9.7 car.
which at like 150
Yeah, I
plus,
bet you. I bet you'll be
yeah,
like
probably like
one.
155, huh?
Yeah, I bet you'll be a 155 car.
Oof.
Yeah, it's gonna be nuts. But again, though, it depends though, because a lot of these quarter mile times they do are with, they'll actually do prep on the track and do
Right.
actual slicks, which is not a real number.
No, it's not.
So
If
that's
they
like,
do
but
semi slicks on an unprepped surface,
that's
that's
what I
the way
want
to
to see.
go.
I want to see
Yeah.
street tires. How does the car come from the manufacturer? I want
Yep.
to see it on pavement. I don't want to see it
Yeah.
on a track. I want to see it on pavement.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you watch Car Wow on YouTube.
I try to. Yeah. Shout out. What's it? Matt? Matt, right?
Matt, yeah, I believe his name's
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah. He's
He
he's that channel's dope.
he does testing on cars for quarter mile times on a tarmac,
Hmm.
not
He
prep.
torments the tarmac.
Yeah, he tore. I mean, it's.
Hey,
I
free
mean, he
plug for
might.
myself.
No,
I
that's
should
good. That's
holler at
good.
him and be like, "Hey, listen, bro, we need to go ahead and come to some agreement. If you're gonna say tormenting tarmac, you got to pay your
Yeah,
boy."
yeah, dude.
I got
Honestly, actually, that'd be pretty sick though, because I would like for you to do an interview with him and like all the different cars he tests that day, and see
I
how the
mean, that
interview
would be
changes. Right, some of the crazy
sure.
fast cars or the slow cars would be great.
Season 4 is not too far. It's not too far away. Then I got to figure out some stuff, because listen, at some point when you get Jensen Button on the podcast, you need to, how do you top that? So like
Dude,
maybe it is talking to the Carwow peeps.
I mean, there's levels to everything, dude. There's levels to
For
everything.
sure.
Like I said, once you get cameras, I'm gonna come over and help you set them up.
Oh, it's
We'll get
gonna be
them all
great.
dialed in. It's gonna be sick. Dude, yeah, there's gonna be levels. You'll have him on a pod. Dude, in no time at all.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. Josh, it's been an absolute delight, and I think we're closing in on probably
Oh wow,
getting to that 2 hour mark.
yeah.
And I know that we could keep going,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
know that a part two is going to be coming, especially once the Supra is back.
Yes.
And we're gonna have a great time, and it's gonna be amazing. And I can't thank you enough for coming to chat with me for a couple hours, when you could have been hanging out with your fiance or something like that. But and again, shout out to you and your fiance. I can't stress how happy it makes me to go ahead and see you and her being happy and in the midst of planning your wedding, which I know can sometimes be a little bit of a frustrating, stressful time.
It
But I
is.
wish
Yeah.
you nothing but the happiness and success to you both, and you love to see it. I want to end it on this, which I love asking this question to people. I want to know what car culture means to you, Josh.
car culture means, I think, a lot more than I think people know. Car culture is a way for somebody who maybe feels a little different than the average. It makes them have a community and almost another secondary family
Mhm.
that all have the same joy. So car community means to me that it's really just friendships and families and enjoying the same thing. It's having, something that's a connection between all of these different people, and then now you get to go and talk to people like you, or go on rallies with these supercar owners, or go and meet the tuner kids with the slam cars. You get to meet all these different things. It's, to me, it means, I mean, essentially everything.
Right.
It's everything I've ever wanted, and it's here, and I get to experience all every day. So that's not really a definition of an answer, but it's more emotional, I think, than anything. If
I
that makes
love
any
that.
sense.
No, it does. You cannot be an enthusiast of this thing that we do and not be an emotional individual, because
Correct.
cars evoke an emotion unlike almost anything else out there. Art evokes emotion, but you can't really do anything with it other than create it.
Hmm.
But when it comes to cars, the cars are created and then there's a use for them. You know, probably watches are the only thing that comes close to it and whatnot. And even then, you can wear a watch, but maybe a diving watch is probably the best example of that, or a watch that you use for racing, or even a watch that you use for flying in particular. But there's something about cars that really evokes that emotion, unlike anything else out there. And speaking of watches, shout out to Sheffield watches out there coming soon. Um, there's just something amazing about what car culture can do to a human being that's invested into the game. And it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
you brought that up.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much. Thanks you for having me. It's funny as I'm pretty a recluse for the most part. I'm shooting, I'm editing, I'm shooting. I'm kind of just here. Haven't been going to car shows at all because my car's been down pretty bad right now. So, it's nice to actually kind of start back into it and about to cool down. So I'm gonna go to some car shows and say hi to everybody. So,
Well, we're gonna hang. We're
yeah,
definitely
we
gonna
will
hang.
grab some
And
coffee. If you I don't know if you drink coffee or not, but
I
um,
will go to a coffee shop with anybody. I won't drink coffee, but I'll go to a coffee shop with anybody. I don't care.
all right,
But
dude,
to
we'll
me,
go.
the biggest thing about this all, Josh, is the fact that you know you are able to go ahead and come spend some time with me, and I hope that I was able to allow you to go ahead and have yourself a free platform where you can express yourself, and
Yeah.
that people, instead of just seeing your Instagram account and seeing the cool shoots that you do for BMW USA and for all the other dealerships over in the Dallas area and whatnot, and then seeing the stuff that you just shared, Stradman's dope pre-LP Murcielago,
Oh yeah, yeah,
the blue one. The what is that? The 40th anniversary car.
yeah. That's the 40th
Yeah, right.
anniversary. I'm
Like
shocked
such
that
a
you know that.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like it's out there. Mercy.
yeah, I
And
can
plus,
tell.
I've seen his car before on other like, but when he first bought it, because he's had it for like about a couple of years now, actually.
Yeah, I think about 5 years.
Yeah, and so I just remember when he bought it, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
But I'm hoping that what we were able to do here today is be able to go ahead and show off your personality and be able to go ahead and allow you to have a good time and just talk about the things that you appreciate and love about this. So I'm hoping that we did that.
yeah, dude, absolutely. I think a lot of people don't get to know the real people behind cameras, and it's nice that social media accounts are one thing, but the person behind it is the other thing. And I think it's great what you're doing. You get to show everybody off and show their authentic selves, and it's hard to be somebody who you're not on a 2-hour podcast, right? So
Mhm.
I hope that came across clear to everybody. And I'm always here to help anybody who asks for help. If anybody wants to slide the DMs and ask for tips or whatever it is, I help everybody. I know it feels to be left unread. It sucked when I first started. So anybody who wants a question, I will be here for anybody who wants help.
I love that. Talk about being left on red. I hear that, brother. For anybody who wants to go ahead and give him a follow, and you should, at Black Tire Media is where you can go ahead and find him on Instagram. Any other social media handles, Josh?
Nope, that's the only one.
That's the
That's the
only
only one
one,
I,
right?
I, I want to do right now. But eventually
Cool.
we'll start doing YouTube and everything else. But for now,
Excellent.
yep. Black Tire Media and Instagram. Thank you so much.
No, dude, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. We'll definitely be doing a part two coming soon once the Supra is making more than 0 horsepower. Um, Josh, you've
Yeah.
been an absolute delight for everyone out there that's been listening. Of course, make sure you go ahead and check out Tormenting Tarmac's Instagram account, and then you can go ahead and find us streaming on Apple and Spotify and all those different places. And make sure you go ahead and leave a 5-star review on Apple, or if you want to give us a follow on Spotify and all that good stuff, please. It means a lot. And then also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's always really helpful too. That way people can go ahead and see the videos once they're posted and all that good stuff. So on behalf of Josh, my name is Jorge Aquino, and you've been listening to Tormenting Tarmac, and it's the podcast where the enthusiast never dies. Good night, everybody.